Anyway, so I'll start with the Indigenous acknowledgement. We would like to begin our meeting by recognizing the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples of Canada as traditional stewards of the land. The municipality is located within the boundary of Treaty 18, region of 1818, which is the traditional land of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat Wyandot peoples. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? John? And Joanne, thank you. Any changes, additions?
That I added 2 charts for the discussion, which I believe is under 3.
F3? Yes, yeah. And I actually would like to approach that piece of the agenda in sort of 3 parts, and that's the work of your committee to date, then the question of the multi-use facility intel and next steps, and the Craig Leaf working group and what to do. And I'm thinking about Joanne, your latest correspondence on that.
Oh,
You sent that to the board. So anything else? Should we also name Nathan up? Do we think? Yeah, he's ready? Okay, so we can do again just before C. So the only thing we'll do is pecuniary interest. So can I, calling the question on approving the agenda. All in favor? Great, that's carried. Thank you. Any declarations of pecuniary interest, the general nature thereof? Seeing none. Thank you. So let's move to maybe not. Okay, well, until he reappears in his chair, then I guess we'll just.
Nathan, if you're ready, I'll pull up your screen. All right.
Yeah, did you get the presentation that I sent?
I did.
Because I also am in the middle of switching out my desk at work, so I have no computer right now.
Give me 1 second and I will share this. All right.
Thank you so much. That makes things easier. I'm going to turn myself sideways and then I can see it better. So I want to thank you guys just for giving me a couple minutes here to present about the Ontario Library Boards Association. Hopefully you are aware a little bit about the OLBA and what the OLBA hopes and intends to do to help strengthen boards across Ontario. That is part of our mission and our vision. We're supposed to be a center of excellence for governance and public library boards. So we can help with your library board if there's concerns or whatever, and you want to raise them with OLBA. We can talk about them amongst ourselves and give you some feedback. We also use that expertise particularly with governance, but also advocacy. We work with the mothership of the Ontario Library Association and FOPL on advocacy, and then as well community engagement. So trying to connect with other library boards across Ontario to help make sure that we're serving the needs of the library board community well. So governance is one of our key things that we'd like to do. We hold educational and professional development opportunities. So every once in a while, we'll have an on-lib chat. And then as well, for you guys who have recently joined the library board kind of within the last year, we revised our cut to the chase document. And this is kind of a primer document for library boards. It's available online, and as well, you could purchase a hard copy. Next slide. So again, as I mentioned, we do advocate with Ontario Library Association and FOPL, as well as providing resources to help advocate for your own level of municipal government. Our goal is to ensure that public libraries maintain their role in their community. Often we hear about libraries being the the living room of the community. So it's kind of about things like that. And so we're here to help you connect with your community as well. I have to do a plug for Super Conference. So last year I was a Super Conference coordinator for OLBA, and I ran our OLBA boot camp. So I put together the entire program. Last year it was only virtual, but we're happy this year we're going to be able to come back and be in person at the Super Conference. So this is a great opportunity for you to meet with other library board trustees, hear about the issues, the concerns, things that keep them up at night, as well as to do some networking and meet some other people. And usually this is part of your library budget. You have a budget for professional development or your boards, specifically your board's professional development. And so there shouldn't be barriers for that. There, as well as bursaries available so that you can attend boot camp. The link there allows you to provide your local representative, of which your area currently does not have a representative. So this is one of the main reasons for coming here today, is to talk to your library board a little bit and see if there is a member of your library board who would be interested in representing your region in OLBA Council. And so we invite you, if you haven't, to renew your membership with OLA and OLBA if it's not up to date. And there's the contact email there for the person who deals with memberships in OLA. So like I said, this is a little bit about how we operate. So we meet up to 7 times a year. Since the pandemic, it has been almost entirely virtual. However, we are hoping to have in-person meetings every once in a while, and travel and accommodations, if they're required, are covered through the OLA budget. We're hoping to have, we had one conference meeting last year leading up to conference, Super Conference, and we're hoping to do the same thing this year. So when we meet, we have our meetings, we have our agenda, and we discuss all the different portfolios, as well as things coming up, including education, advocacy, and resource development. And then we also have a member of council who for years has done Inside OLBA, which is our newsletter, and we're always looking for content as well. So if you have an exciting project that for your library board that you'd like to share with the broader library community, that's always an opportunity to reach out and share some of those insights with OLBA, and we can share them with the rest of the province and kind of toot your own horn about your great successes that you have up there. And then finally, it's a great opportunity to learn strategies and strengthen your library board and get a sense of what's happening in different regions of Ontario. You know, Toronto is not the same as where I am here in Brantford, which is not the same as Sault Ste. Marie, where I went to visit my friend this summer. So having all those different perspectives at the table is incredibly helpful. So if you're interested in joining OLBA, you could email Carolyn Goulding or myself, and we would be happy to have someone at the table representing your region. So if you have any other questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Nathan, what is our region called? I'm trying to remember.
I want to say you are central. No, I'm Central West. No, you're Central.
Some of them don't make sense what the names are, but okay, we'll look it up.
Yeah.
And just refresh memory on, so OLBA, we are members, everybody is a member. You've already received the cut to the chase. That was in our orientation. I purchased copies so everyone has that. It is online, like you said. it is a board of 10 with an incoming president or vice president, president, past president, and treasurer, and then 6 regions.
In 6 regions, correct. So currently, I guess I should have said a little bit about that. So currently, our past president is also Carolyn Golding, who I mentioned previously.
Who is becoming the vice president of the Ontario Library Association, the whole one. Yeah, so incoming president.
And then our current president is Marge Poirier, and she's from northwestern Ontario, up near Kenora. And then I'm currently vice president. I'm also treasurer, and I represent Central West, I think is my region's name. And so because I had that additional duty, we now have someone from Hamilton who has agreed to step on and serve for my region. So we have that, and we have Southwestern is also vacant. So there's a number of vacancies, and it would be great to have someone from your library board if anyone is interested.
I'm just looking up the divisions here for us, and of course it's going to be slow just because I'm trying.
And what is the difference? I know I've asked this before, but it's just about to solidify. What is the difference between FOPL and the Ontario Library Association?
The Ontario Library Association is a member organization, so it's individuals.
Okay.
So there are 7 divisions in the Ontario Library Association. We constitute 2 of them. So there's the Ontario Library Board Association, which is a division of the big, that's why we call it the mothership, OLA. And then the public libraries have their own, the Ontario Public Library Association, which is for staff. And then there's a bunch of others. There's academic, school, health, francophone, us, and OLITA is technology. So we are basically 2 of them, a little bit the third one with OLITA, we have a number of members. So we are kind of like the big force in OLA. Federation of Ontario Public Libraries, the library joins.
Okay.
So they work in tandem to advocate to the ministry. But one is advocating and working to support individual people. And OB is a little bit different because you're looking at the individual board members training, but also you do some work with the boards as a whole. And then the Federation of Ontario Public Libraries, they speak to the CEO and they work that way.
And where do the unions fit?
We don't have union here.
But is there a union separate,
Some people who are unionized are with QB.
okay,
Most
so
of them.
like in Toronto, they're all unionized, they would be, it's not a separate library.
No.
Okay.
Service workers. So pretty much QB takes most of the service sector, but we are not unionized here. Most of the small libraries aren't unionized, small, medium. The mediums that have moved towards unionization are usually ones that have had an issue, and that's why we make those decisions to go. So if anybody is interested in getting more information about OLBA, certainly I can help. If anybody is considering maybe being a rep, and thinking I don't know enough, everybody's in the same position because everybody's in their first year across the province. There will be some repeat offenders, the people who have come more than once. But being a regional rep is not scary. It's not like they're asking you to represent the entire organization as president or vice president. Those are usually people that have been through the process a few times. I know I put one of my former chairs, Don Lynch, through, recommended that he take it, and it was your Central Western or whatever the region was. So he was the rep there for a while before he, 1 or 2 terms moved into the vice president, onto the president and past president role. So certainly it's something to think about.
So do these libraries represent all libraries in the province or just public libraries, like what municipal public libraries?
Public libraries. So public libraries are municipal public libraries, county public libraries. There are a few that are union, where one library is supporting two communities. It's all through the Public Libraries Act, who we are. Other than a private library does
I'm
not
thinking of
receive,
schools, like they have libraries, or even our.
they're under the school library program.
Okay.
So OLBA wouldn't do those because
Okay.
the school boards are responsible for those pieces. But they also have a seat through the Ontario Library Association that individual teacher librarians can be members there, but not in OLBA. That's for public library boards.
Okay.
Anything else, Nathan, that you think maybe we missed?
No, other than like, we'd love to see you and, at OLBA, and if not at OLBA, at Super Conference next year.
Yes, we will be looking for all of the webinars that the OLBA puts out. I always promote those to the board members so they can attend them. And we'll start talking about OLBA probably in October or November to see who's interested in going, so we make sure it's built into the budget for next year. And then try to get members to the boot camp, which is fantastic. Really good,
Yeah.
good program.
And then my email is contact me, all one word, at nathanetherington.ca. If you Google my name, I feel like I'm the first one that comes up all the time. And I have my own website, so it just, everything's on there. So if you have any concerns or any questions or just want to reach out, I always make myself very available to people.
Wonderful.
Thanks for your time. Hope you have a good board.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
All right. So I'll send you Nathan's email, just so that you have it. I'll make sure that that presentation is in our records in case you want to look at it online through the SharePoint again. And if you have questions about OLBA, or even if you're considering being a member, just let me know and I'm happy to give more information.
So let's move back to C in the agenda, and this is the motion to receive those 4 reports: the action plan update, the CEO service update, the recruitment committee, and then Q2 variance reports. Mover and seconder, please. Sean, I have to stop looking directly at you each time. All in favor? Thank you, that's carried. Minutes, there's a cast of thousands of minutes all listed here. Did anybody have any questions, changes, comments on
And we can
minutes?
certainly do them as an individual with that.
Yeah, so that helps because it was quite a mishmash, came out all at once. Do we want to do them separately or just do this motion together?
Well, I wasn't at the July meeting, so I can't.
Okay,
Right, unless they were pulled
approve
out separately.
those. Yeah,
I thought there was one set of minutes that said you were here and I thought I'd written down you'd given regrets.
I read through them rather quickly. I have to admit.
Yeah, so it's okay. Forget which one, sorry.
There is one that I did note that Joanna had not made any resolutions,
Yeah,
which I assumed that would mean that you were not present and I just missed it. So we can move them with the amendment of Joanne and I.
Yeah, so the June 14th, I wasn't there. Yeah.
okay.
Yes, or 14th and 15th.
The 2 of them? the 14th
Yes,
and the
right,
15th?
yeah.
There's 2, yes, yeah. Okay, so with that amendment. May I have a mover and seconder? Chris. Seconder, Yeah, good, yeah, thank you, Anna. Any other discussion? All in favor? Great, thank you very much, that's carried. Now we can slide on down to we don't have any correspondence, we don't need that recommendation, recommend a motion.
Do you want to receive the deputation from OLBA?
If you think we should. Okay,
Good to make it in minutes.
okay. Move and seconder, please.
I'll move it to receive this information,
Great, second, Joanne, thank you. Any other discussion?
unless Sabrina, you think it should be moved for consideration as per his request to somebody to this board, or
I think information is fine, and then individual board members can make decisions if they're interested, and I'm happy to speak with them then offline about what that means and what the commitment is and what they're looking for.
then I will stick to the original. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Here, that's carried. Okay, so now we're into the action plan. So received an update on that. I was gonna ask you about the status of the accreditation, but that you won't be dealing with that anyway, and your reports. I did have a question about CH 2.7, which is promote homebound services for shut-ins and short, long-term disability community members, because the timing was March. I was wondering if there was an update on that.
So action. Which one was it you were looking at?
CH 2.7, page 2.
Page 2.7, promote homebound services for shut-ins and short, long-term disability community members. We usually do that in the winter, that we promote it, so I'm probably just missed putting it on there. That's something that we're finding, that the homebound pickup is more a case of seniors who aren't driving in the winter. We haven't had anybody who's asked us for homebound for disability reasons. So it's typically a winter program. So that should have been checked off.
Okay. Thank you.
And we'll start promoting that again in November.
Anybody have any questions or anything that they wanted to ask about? No? The other one I had was regarding the charitable status, if we have any progress on that.
We do not, and that's something that I definitely will follow up on and try to get moving before I leave, so that there's a continuity there.
Is there anything that we should be concerned about in terms of actions that are outstanding?
The charitable status is a big one. The CRA has changed some of what it will use for purposes for charitable status. Libraries do qualify, it's just a bit of a hassle trying to make it happen. We tell anybody who has charitable status back in the day, like, don't lose it, because it's so hard to get it back. We haven't spent anything on doing this though in the past year, so it's just that it's very slow moving forward. There were some questions about our purpose that came back with our constitution. We needed to send new policies showing what we were, just to make sure that we had the right wording for what they were looking for. And certainly if we get any feedback that some of our bylaw cleanup needs to happen, that we're using certain trigger words, we'll make sure that comes back to the board.
Okay.
I actually noticed I had a couple others I wanted to ask about. ES 3.6, which is on the next page, I was down a bit. The Create a Community Builders webpage, and it's connected to the next one, which is develop a list of skill sets to be included in the webpage. Can you talk a bit about that again, because it's something that's dated June,
Well, so that was something that I really wanted to do. I've just been a little bit busy with the
other things.
other things now that we're pulling together for council. The Community Builders webpage was a place where we could list people with skills, and promote some of our partners. So things that might not normally have a website, for example. So when we have the pollinator group that comes in, that's not somebody who's a business and registered and has a phone number. And it's a way that we could then promote them so that they could give us a little bit of information, similar to the Meet the Team, that we're just able to sort of put pieces up that supports the people that we partner with already. So we're not taking on being like a phone book. We're here to be, who do we partner with that are groups that are the grassroots that people don't really know about. And we just have not gotten there. So I will put that onto our dance card to start that piece. Franz returns from vacation in September. So he'll be the one who's doing that piece with our manager of technical services, who will build out some website pieces. But I already have a few that we wanted to start with. And I have a feeling that once we start to build that, other people who are partnering with us may then say we'd like to have it. Or some who have never partnered with us, never come and done presentations, never thought of us in that way, might come out of the community to let us know that they're there, which gives us the ability to say, we can run a workshop where they can talk about this and educate the community, and then put that information out. One of them that we've had recently was the burial program. What is the?
The natural barrier.
Natural barrier.
I was about to say live burial. Yeah, let's not do that.
All options.
That's why we have to string in the little bell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the natural burial group had come through once, and it might have been 2 years ago. Somebody talking about MAID, like they might not be somebody that would be a developer, a website person, but people that then start talking about, well, what about, medical assistance in dying? How does that fit? And hospices bringing those pieces in. We've had that talk about a year ago, and we're planning on doing that one in the fall. The natural burial certainly makes sense. People have just started doing that now, and the community was on the fence, and it's kind of moving forward in ways. So more people understanding it helps it to become successful in the community. So those are the types of groups that we're trying to promote. I could certainly see we're partnering with the Historic Society now. Them having a spot there, they do have a website, but we could also then connect to their website, so just put that link there. So the types of things and people that we partner with, that people might be interested in getting more information. So really, it's going back and looking at the past 2 years of our programs and seeing not everybody, but which ones really fit those criteria. So it really is an administrative piece that we just haven't gotten to.
Okay,
But I will put people on that so that we can get there.
one of the reasons it struck me is it's very much about a community, well, let's call it community building. And, in terms of the questions we were asked at council, what does the library contribute to the community, or how are you used? I think this is a great way where it's clearly not looking at books in the library. It's a very different kind of thing. And it may not be far enough along really to include in our story this fall, but I think it's a really good one to.
It's one of them that came out of the consultation at Ravenna. So
Oh,
we are
yes.
doing our strategic plan, we were going to various places. The community builders website wasn't something that was recommended, but in the conversation, when they were talking about how can we support some of these grassroots groups, we just sort of said, this sounds like a webpage to us. And we developed it in consultation, during the consultation, with myself, another staff, and 2 community members that were there. We kind of came up with how this would work, and then moved on to other things that they thought the library should be involved with. So it very much was a grassroots initiative of community members saying, we have a role.
Yeah, can I just ask a question, building on that, you or something that I was asking you before, and I completely agree, I think it's absolutely the role of the library as a central resource. Right, this is yet another community hub. Will we have, or can we have, clearly explanation of who is here and sort of what our process for who gets included? Because I think there are a lot of groups that, you know, there's 2 sides to this. I was just working on a similar project with something else, and who gets to decide who's on there and who has to maintain making sure. So some of these groups are, you know, after a while they lose funding, they change, et cetera. So there is that amount of work. I was just saying maybe I'm sure because you're so organized, it will be somewhere in the policies or whatever.
It definitely, once we get it up, we have to maintain and double check that the links, that the phone numbers are the right people.
Yeah.
You know, before websites were our main way of communicating, we had binders of this information. So, you know, every fall you'd have to call and make sure that Tony is still the Girl Guide leader for Sparks, and they're still meeting at this church on Wednesday night at whatever time. And then they would usually, you know, say either yes or no, I've passed it on too, and then you update your information. So libraries were really involved with that for quite some time. So it's just sort of the community information binder was what it was, and we're trying to make this be some of that information, but definitely that it's those ones that we get the calls for, that we know, those partners that they say, I saw something in a program a year ago, I want to do that in my own garden.
Yeah.
Actually, I think Hamilton Public Library was doing a project like this a couple of years ago, and I wonder if they would share their manual. Say rewriting anything. The other question I had was around the coffee meetings with between board members and council members. I'm wondering if anyone's had a chance to book a meeting. I will confess that I have not yet asked for a meeting.
The August or the July vacancy did put it.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
the council was shut down for a couple of weeks. It was.
Oh, I wouldn't know. I didn't have a break.
Did you meet with yourself?
I had many consultations with myself. Didn't get much out of it though.
I can help to schedule those and expedite those if you're looking to do something in September or between now and like Thanksgiving.
I wanted to wait until I had a better handle on where the data was heading, because I'm to meet with Peter,
Yes.
and he was very quiet. I didn't get a sense from him during the meeting about his position one way or another with respect to expansion, but I'd like to know what the key messages are before I do that. And I think, you know, today's meeting is
So maybe we get through the September meetings and then we start looking at,
yeah, because we're coming back in November, right, to council
we'll make the decision here today. Yeah, that's what.
approximately. Yeah, so I was thinking it would be good to meet him like a month before that.
Yeah. Okay, great.
I'm gonna be away, so I don't know if Alex, who's the one I was assigned, whether I should meet with him before I leave or wait till I come back. I don't know anything about him. I don't know anything about his background.
Yeah, we can look at the schedules and see what works and if it makes sense to reach out before, even to reach out and say I'm away for the month, but I'll be giving a call and whenever you're back. Just so that he doesn't feel like everybody else has been contacted
And
and
he's ignored.
right, that he knows you're away for a bit and that you're looking to book something.
Okay, anything else in the action plan update? Okay. Then the next item is the CEO recruitment committee and the terms of reference that you received. just so you know, some of this, we have boilerplate terms of reference. So some of the stuff you may have been surprised, oh, we've been more comprehensive than I might have expected, and some of it is just like the duties of members and non-member attendance and removal of vacancies. So it was all kind of boilerplate stuff. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask about this?
Specifically 7 and 8. You know, purpose and mandate are really the ones that are specific.
I know these.
What pages are we on? Sorry,
On 34, 33, 34.
okay, so why am I, have the document open that only has up to 16?
That would be a problem. Actually, have it on the, up here if you're interested.
So are we looking to accept this as our terms of reference?
Yes,
Let me get it.
yeah. That's the plan, is to move it for approval. And we also need to name a third person, but I was just wanted to make sure that you were comfortable with what was here first. I did have a couple of questions. In particular, under 10.
I have to say I was surprised with your email, the number of applications we've already received. Cause I thought, oh, that time frame is really short, but man,
Makes you glad it's short, eh?
yeah,
The library partnership job board.
it's obviously very effective.
It's very effective. Pretty much every library staffer is on that. It comes daily, even if you're not looking for a job, it's information
Yeah,
that really helps.
So, but I, like, how do we know how many of those 30 people also applied to the Meaford CEO job as well? Or they just kind of keep that to
The
themselves?
committee will bring that information after they're established. We did have 30 applications. It closed Tuesday. There are a good portion that don't meet the qualifications of the must-haves.
Okay,
And then the committee will set the rest of the screening questions after this meeting, once they're appointed. And then we'll receive the applications and we'll get to work so that we can make offers of interview dates early next week.
right. Just because, so I can just, where my thinking was, is that, when it comes to hiring somebody, especially in your position, if you've already, if you're, if there's a possibility that you're just gonna say, well, not good enough, and then go to Meaford, then we just waste it. Or they just
Probably
waste it.
not, because one of the criteria is the Masters of Library and Information Science.
Oh, okay,
So they may have an MBA, and the committee will have to make a decision if they're willing to entertain someone with an MBA. And you're right, with an MBA, you might be looking to go at other places. But when you're looking at library, executive of library, 10 years of experience in library, there's a bunch of criteria that were in the call that probably we're not getting the same candidates.
okay, thanks for the explanation.
so. You have seen all these candidate applications, I should say.
Mhm.
So in terms of the committee, would you just forward those that qualify based on the current criteria?
They'll get the entire package.
Oh.
I highlight the ones that don't have it, just so that you don't have to go through as much, and they'll take their look at everybody
Okay.
and say, yes, that one's out.
So we have to actually look at people who do not meet the criteria.
You should receive the whole package so that you know exactly what's on there, so there's no question
Then
that
we get accosted in the
so if
street.
there's anything along, that's right, that anything has gone along the way. So yes, you receive the whole package, the whole bundle, the information. And then sort of the short list of people who have met
The
the
criteria.
basic criteria of MLIS. And then the committee today is going to make the decision on what criteria we listed they want as
Mandatories.
mandatories and, really like to have pieces as well.
Just like you.
That's right.
We want
I'm sure there's others out there.
Yes, so that will be the committee, and that is what this is giving them as the mandate, is the responsibility and permission, the mandate of the board to do the recruitment, which has already been started, but then to do the screening the interviews, the shortlisting, and then present back to the board on September 13th. The top candidates, which may be one, if one is head and shoulders above the best, or two, if there's two that they feel are very close. And those will be about an hour interview, get to know you opportunity with the board. And at that point, as a person who has been through that process, you are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. Because it's not uncommon that somebody sits down at a board table and they realize it's not the communication that I'd like to be part of. So they interview the board members.
I would, if I were.
Most definitely. So that is the mandate that's in here. There's some other pieces like the records management and the timelines, but that's the big thing is that you're giving that.
I thought it was September 14th. That we were meeting, because I'm leaving on the 15th and I have booked
We're meeting
something.
on the 13th.
That's a Wednesday.
Yeah, that's for the second round of interviews, yeah.
Is there any chance we can move it up in the day? What time are we meeting?
We hadn't set that, we normally meet at 1, but you asking it to be moved earlier?
Yeah. Like the morning, if possible.
No?
We probably need a 3-hour meeting. It would be up to an hour for the first candidate, you're gonna take a stretch break, 15 minutes, then we'll have the second candidate, another little break. And then we'll come together and then the board will make decisions. You can have me in or out, depending what your preferences are. And then the committee will be given that information to go back and finish the process, which most likely will be the chair who's doing reference checks and those pieces. But that's the committee does that piece then for them.
So can we set that for 9 a.m.? Does that work for people on a Wednesday
Okay, sorry, Wednesday the 13th,
of September?
it was 1 and
It was one.
now you're on trigger tonight.
I don't know why it didn't show up in my. Calendars.
So that'd be, we'll book it for 9 to 12. We probably won't be that long,
Yeah, that'd be,
especially if there's one candidate.
especially if we have the secret code, just stop asking the questions partway through. This is from the dud.
Hopefully the committee has done all of that work for you.
And
through
there
the
will be,
interview
oh,
process.
yes, that's my.
Yeah, there should be no duds putting it.
That's right. These are the
Observations.
That's right, recommendations. to
It won't let me edit the time.
I mean, we have a boardroom available at 9.
I will clear it, it's not.
Okay. Okay, I have a question regarding resources and or budget. If we need, do we have a travel budget if we need to? For example, we want to bring a candidate from further away to the board meeting.
We have not, but
Or do we just assume Zoom?
we haven't put it in, but certainly the board has a budget.
Okay.
So if that's something that the board wants to delegate, the ability to pull from that budget, certainly. And if somebody is out of province, then I would assume we're going to go for a Zoom meeting.
Yeah. We could just,
Possible.
yeah.
I mean, you might consider Zoom for the first round and the second round saying we need to be on site, but that would be the committee making those decisions.
Okay, so we could just wait and if we do see a need to get a travel budget, we could have a quick email approval type process.
Yes.
Okay. Among the board, because we're not gonna be having another meeting between now and that September 13th. Second round, right? Because our regular board meeting would be the week after.
I feel that the wording of the resources and the budget is allowed for that. And I'm in agreement, I just feel like the wording
Yes,
allows for that. the request.
okay. So any other questions regarding the contents of the terms of reference? And if not, then we looking for a third person to join the committee. It's already, well, normally the chair and vice chair. So looking for a third person, wondering if anybody has HR experience or a particular interest in participating in this process.
I'm interested, but I don't have any HR experience. So I could defer to someone who has. But if no one else is jumping at it, I have experience.
I've hired lots of people and fired and. But I'm leaving on the 19th, so I noticed there was something there September the 21st, I think it was.
20th is just board meeting.
Yeah, I won't be here for that, so somebody else will need to make a report.
Should all be completed by September
Yeah,
13th.
the September 13th would be the day that we would be dealing with that.
Interviews the first week of September,
Yeah,
and then the final interview on September 13th.
Well, so yeah, that would be the other thing is to make sure you'd be available on the days. We have to set aside at least one day next week. I think it would be a full day meeting. And a full day sometime the week between September 5 and 7 for the committee interviews. And then of course the 13th. Wait, were you gonna say something, John?
I don't know how actively elected officials participate in these things. I probably not. I probably shouldn't. Here,
Okay,
I just don't, I don't think it's a good. I just,
fair enough.
I would be happy to like pop in, or you call me and bring coffee or something, but I don't feel comfortable that I should be part of a hiring process.
Okay,
You know, if I wasn't an elected official, then if, you know, I just, yeah, so I'm gonna just respectfully be quiet about
okay,
helping with that,
okay.
but I will bring coffee, yes, thank you.
I don't mind, although if Marie really wants it, then I don't want to cut her out.
Okay,
I will be available, and that's something that the board or the committee needs to determine where you want me. If you want me in the meetings, I'm able to provide those HR nudges, or you don't need to answer that question. If there's something that's said that shouldn't be said, or if you don't want me in there and you just want it to be the members, committees have gone both ways. So that's just something that committee will make a decision on. But I am available for the HR piece, and I have people who have worked in places where they have hired as well.
Okay,
Before you change from the morning to the afternoon, let me see if I can switch this other meeting.
You know what, I like it in the morning on the 13th.
Okay, so
So
you're
from
all
my
right.
perspective, I prefer that.
Okay, okay,
Otherwise, I would have to.
Okay.
So,
all right, all right.
okay. Well, which one do you?
So we have
Or
Marie
Joanne, I
and
suppose.
Chris both interested.
yeah, so it doesn't matter to me. I will make myself available if that works.
I'm just a little hung up on the 2 full days for them. I don't think we need 2 full days.
We may not, but
Yeah,
we had, I
okay.
just thought that when I saw 30 as a number of applicants.
Yeah, but
Pretty pro, but it really depends on
how many valid?
exactly.
Yeah.
It's exciting to see that many people apply though,
Yeah,
whether they
in a
qualify
short
or
period
not,
of time,
that's
right.
still.
Okay,
I
so,
have 20 who are in the long list at this point. Out of the
Okay.
30
and 30.
With degrees.
that meet the minimum standard based on just that one criteria.
Mhm. Well, then.
So
um,
there's going to be time to read with 20.
Okay, so let's do this in 2 stages. Let's approve the terms of reference as a one motion. May I have a mover and seconder for that? So Chris and Marie, any other discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Now can I have a nomination for the third person on the committee?
Want to nominate? I want to nominate myself.
I'll nominate you. Well, I think we appreciate the expertise of someone who's done it before, correct?
It's also a good opportunity to build expertise though as well. So really decide.
Yeah, it's not, yeah.
I have a
Yes,
question.
John.
Bo.
Yes, you do. Go ahead.
Would it make sense, could I would. Wonder, would it make sense to, or if we make a nomination for Chris, but what about adding Marie as an alternate in case something happens that Chris can't be there? So then we're not having to reconvene a meeting to re-nominate somebody. Is that something that gets done very often, Sabrina?
It'd be
Is it-
very hard to have someone come in for just one, like not being part of the first section, but then the second section. I don't think you can do that. I think so. You get someone on the committee and they're there for the whole time.
It's not like a year-long appointment.
No,
No,
And 4 people would be lovely on the panel, but it constitutes quorum because we're small.
sorry, then
yeah,
disregard I'm sorry, and I'm the one that's always going, you can't. talk
Well, it
about
would,
that."
the alternate wouldn't be quorum because they wouldn't be there at the same time, but,
Nope,
4 people is a nice size panel for hiring, it's just we can't do that.
I'm
because-
sorry, I will retract that thought process.
I understand where you're coming from,
Yeah.
Yeah.
trying to find opportunities to involve both, basically.
I'm fine with 3. I've done a lot of this, so,
so am I.
yeah.
Okay, so we don't really need HR expertise, what it comes down to, I
No.
guess.
I have HR expertise too.
Yeah.
So go for it then, Maria, I know you want it.
Then I'll nominate Marie.
Okay, so let's put it as a motion appointing the chair, vice chair, and Marie to recruit, assess, and make recommendations to the board. Okay,
So can I go back and see if we can still do it in the afternoon? Then
We can do it offline and take a look at our schedules after the meeting.
yeah, okay, let me just.
That'll give-
I just realized I'm in Sudbury the day before, so the rest of us should hold the whole day just in case.
That's what I've done, I just blocked the whole day there.
So I have John as a mover.
Yeah, so do I. I don't have a seconder yet.
I'll say.
Joanne, okay? All in favor? Carries, thank you very much. With that, days of each of us. So we're meeting after this to do all of that.
Briefly.
I'll come back at 4 o'clock. There's our first snack.
Yes, okay, yeah. Or, yeah, okay, or be in touch with me and we can figure out where we're at and if we need to come back, we can just do that over Zoom. Okay. So now we're on to the community hubs pillar.
If I could just take a minute to just update on the public library guideline accreditation.
Did I just skip it?
Well, it was a bad way. I put the recommendation after 1, 2 instead of between 1, 2. So it got lost.
Oh, yes, good point.
I just wanted to say we had 100%, which is unheard of and has never happened in public library guidelines history, 99, but not 100. When it came to all of our policies, our bylaws, our governance needs, 100%, and many of the documents that we gave are now being put up as the exemplars
Nice.
for people who are there, which is good because we did the same 5 years ago. Many of our items were exemplars, but last time we did it, we missed 2 of them at that point. So we've corrected those few. They had a few recommendations that they did not give us points on for on-site sort of program type things. We did not have programs that were being offered specifically to 2SL LGBTQIA+. So that's something that we've noted and are looking to reach out to the Rainbow Club of South Bay, South Georgian Bay. Just to be able to, see if there are things that they are doing that they would like to bring in. Fully noted and something we're working on. And then the other one was an accessible workstation, which we don't have, and that's part of our planning as we're doing our updates for furniture. We knew that, we hope that would be done by that point. We do have the ability, everyone who is in scooters or wheelchairs that use our services are able to go right into the table that we have. But they're looking for the tables that with the button will lift and come up, so if a person needs to stand, if you're on a scooter that's a little bit higher, that you can still pull it up a bit to look. So that's something that we're looking at. And then they made a recommendation, which is something that we've already identified, We are not a multi-floor structure, so we didn't need an elevator, but we do have the sunken area in the story tower. The town staff had identified that. That was something that was promised to bring that up for us as part of a larger piece that they were going to do, work on the story tower. I know it was in the budget and just kind of has been pushed as their schedules are overwhelming for them. So that's something that's in there. We don't offer programs in there anymore. We actually stopped offering programs because we have one little guy who comes in a wheelchair and couldn't get down there, so we moved all of our programs into the gallery for that. It's also nice, you know, when people want to come in and they have the baby who's in the stroller and they're there for a top program. They're basically leaving baby just outside where you can see, but you're not in the exact same space. So we noted that as a recommendation, but they didn't ding us because we're not technically a multi-floor structure in the way that multi-floors are looked at. So we have 3 things to work on. We had 100% on all of those, you know, policy-driven pieces. So fantastic, and I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that we are now.
And congratulations.
Thank you. So something to consider, our new CEO will have to go and receive the certificate at the Thursday night banquet at OLA. So they give it in January, February at that point, but we're accredited as of today, but we'll get our new certificate at that point. So, great job. Policies are the big thing. If you don't have the policies, they're all mandatories. So if you don't have the policies, there's no way to pass. So that is right on the board's shoulders. So good job.
Well, good job,
Your-
and your staff.
Yes, thank you. I will let the staff know, and certainly we can add that into our key messages now. It just came through though.
Yes.
Oh, that's good news.
Yes, I opened up a package and there was a sticker in there before I went down.
Great. Thank you. So then back to the NPL Usage Stats Committee, which I think in the SharePoint is called the Council Response Committee. It is the
We
same thing.
established a committee to do the stats and didn't actually name it, so it's sort of,
Okay,
yes.
so
Yeah. so
work to
maybe-
date and next steps and.
Yeah, maybe I'll start and then, can you pull up the chart first? And then we'll do the graph. We really spent our first, I think we got together, what, 3 times? And the first sort of meeting and a half was really to get clarity on the numbers, because we had to add some things, we had to do some projections. Oh, I think I put it in the board meeting.
Yeah.
Key statistics year over year, it's a word right there. Okay, so this one's a bit more of a process than it might seem. But we using Sabrina's expertise, we were able to get sort of add things up and put them in the right columns. Where do we go?
Sorry, not able to get to share here.
So what wasn't it? We can see it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
That's it. Oh, we
put
don't-
it up on our
oh,
share and it's not giving it to me, so we're not sharing, that's fine.
okay, so you can see the number of, so we have card holders in 2019 on, we decided to start there because before that, the data was maybe not collected in the same. It was Sabrina's first year, I think, of data, and we just didn't feel comfortable with it.
We had switched over from one system to another
Yeah.
system, and when we moved into the new system, we were able to really clean up a lot of it.
Total visits are just that. Anything in blue is projected, so I'll speak to that in a moment, but total visits, this is people walking through the door. This is not virtual, this is people. So you can see that well before the pandemic, we were quite high, 109, almost 110,000, dropped obviously substantially. And the pandemic started to come back in 21 and in 22, nice resurgence, and we do not have 23 statistics. So that 90,000 even number is a sort of an educated guess. Program attendance does include virtual in 2020 and 2021, which is why you see a big spike. It does not mean that we are losing ground. It just means, as Sabrina said, we had people from Australia joining. So
You Google Blue Mountains, you will get Australia.
Yeah.
yeah,
We had lots of comments of the great new programming that were coming for residents of the Blue Mountains in Australia.
yeah. We looked at population two ways. So we looked at the permanent assumptions that are based on Stats Canada for the first 4 years. The number is the same, 7025 permanent residents. Underestimates because it doesn't include seasonal who may be using the library, but never mind. Then we had great fun. And I guess 9390 is the new number from Stats Canada, so we've just left that. So that's in that total population Census Canada there. Then for population assumptions, we said, well, we know it's not 9390. And that's when we went to information that Sabrina received from the town on expected number of new households coming in over the next number of years.
Like
And
coming
we-
online, coming
Yeah,
after houses
Yeah.
from being in construction.
so, and then we made an assumption of 3 people per household, is that it? So that would show, that's where you see that 11,000, 12,000, 13,000 number. Then we looked at cardholders as a percentage of households. And we decided that the 64 and 65 were anomalies. And we went back to our 51%, which is excellent, by the way. Apparently many libraries are around a third, if I recall. So we thought 51% was, it was before COVID, and in fact, it is what we're seeing now, partway through the year. So we thought, let's just keep that stable. And then how we got the total cardholders then was taking the 51% of the population. So in 2024, if you were to take 51% of 12,147, you would get 6195. So that's an assumption. Those are why those are in blue. Total visits per population. We haven't really done much with that at the moment, but it's just there. Now, do you mind pulling up the one other chart? And then maybe we can get into, because Joanne's done a lot of thinking about what does the story telling us.
So we're still working on that.
It's still working on it, but
The expected growth.
yeah. Yeah, so this. Oh, at the top is the legend. Yeah, so again, it's the same data, just for 4 of the data elements. With 2 different axes, I had quite the time. I could not master putting the projections in a different. I was going to try to put them in a hatch mark, but when we get to council, we'll have to be very clear as to what we're showing. But I thought it's just a nice visual way of showing that with population growth comes a growth in visits and cardholders.
Yeah.
Is there any way of separating that between Craigleaf and?
Yes, but we got into a discussion about. And this is where, we're gonna have to really think about how we're presenting this, but it's. Like, we know, we wanted to start with, we're going to need a new facility at some point. Because overall we're growing, and that hopefully will lead to a recognition that there has to be a decision made, whether that be here in a multiplex or in a standalone library in Craiglee. But we also got into the usage isn't that high because it's not there.
It's not a library.
So we do have the statistics on the size of the community, and we can do some presumptions, but if we think we're gonna go in and say Craigleith needs this because of this growth in their usage, we're not going to show that.
No, but you can show this growth in the population, and
Yeah.
it is highest there as opposed to
Yeah.
here, and it argues for a library in that location.
Exactly, so we'll be looking at the assumed growth that the town has to be able to identify what houses are coming online in which places, and there are houses coming online in the Lower Bay area and in other areas. To be able to look at that. The Craigleith and Thornbury, though, is a different question than what the town asked, which was CHD and Ellie Shore. So the CHD LES numbers, we have those, but it's really low, because what it is Craigleith does not have a library.
Yeah,
The Craigleith Heritage Depot is actually a deposit station for them to do holds pickup. So what we know is how many people are registered as a user at the Craigleith Heritage Depot for pickup versus Ellie Shore. And it's about 190 people out of our 4,000s that we have. We then were able to go back and look at the other question, which is not looking at card holdership, but not looking at card holdership of where they prefer to pick up holds, but card holdership versus each other. So the L9Y or the Craigleith versus the NOH Thornbury, Clarksburg. And in that we came up, but it's still very low. So there's under 1,000, about 900 and change out of that are the L9Y people. And again, the argument is we can see how it grows, but we know that Craigleith is underusing the service. Again, because they're saying, I don't have service because you don't have a library in Craigleith.
Yeah, I think as we're digging into the numbers more, it's really what you see is asking for Ellie Shore versus CHD is like apples and oranges, right? Ellie Shore is a library and a gallery, and with programming and space and everything. CHD is a museum and archives. It's not a library. It doesn't have that designation. It doesn't have, so I think it's really important. I mean, I think that to me is digging through all of this. It's like, they're two different things. CHD is not a designated library, period. When we look at, and to your point, like when we look at the population and we say, 20% of our card holders are from the Craigleith area, that's actually significant. 20%, it's a big number.
and our circulation.
And
It's about
circulate,
20%.
and so, yeah, so it's, it is, they
Yeah.
do, but it's not, essentially, our goal is really looking at the whole population and saying, hey, no matter how you slice it, we are physically unable to support, we're maxed out now, and so the growth in the next 10 years, which the town knows, I mean, they know this, everything's starting to hit the seams. So I think it's, it's fascinating to see this, but I do think it's very important that we're clear that CHD is not. And so what we're trying to do is say, then the next level of digging is what services, like the number of programs that we offer and how many people are attending programs. Because again, looking at the numbers, it's not how many card holders we have, it's that we have hundreds of thousands of visitors, and you know this, because you're on the board, hundreds of thousands of visitors in so many capacities, not, yes, number one activity is books. Second, and very close to the program attendance. So it's being able to do both of those. I think that's where, helping council see that It's that, the number of programs, and actually Sabrina called that out, I was at our last meeting, was just, we are the number one provider of programming, community programming. So because there's nowhere else to do the yogas and the after-school programs and the seniors programs, et cetera, that's dedicated to that, and I feel like that's
offered by municipal
that's
tax
offered by
dollars.
municipal tax dollars, yes, so. So that's really coming, now looking at being able to sort of show as we dig into the numbers, all of the programs. And that, okay, if we have more people, we're physically out of room. Yeah, which I know you're somebody, you've been doing that for 40 years.
Ron, I was wondering, because I don't think I've seen you, I wasn't here the last board meeting, I felt like we needed to step back a bit, because for whatever reason, going in, and we had what we thought was Intel saying they were interested in the Craigleith site. But to me, I realized there was a bigger question they were asking. It's just, why do you need any more in library period? So to me, that is important to show. I don't know, like, do you have any insight in, like, we don't want to beat our heads against a wall. We believe it would make a great deal of sense, as you know, and you believe it too, that Craigleith is a great location.
Mhm.
However, is that beating our head against a wall? And are we better to show that the library actually needs, looking at projecting, we need more somewhere?
Well, the data is already there, right? As I spoke with Sabrina about the development charges study
Yeah.
that dictates, dictates, here's your population, this is what you have to have, right? That's why we have those development charges. And it also says you're collecting it, so you have to use it, right?
In Craigleith?
In whatever fashion.
Library expansion.
As library expansion.
Yeah.
So that should be, to me, that's definitive enough, but we didn't have that at the arm. We weren't armed and ready with that for that meeting, for one thing. There's some things that I'm not going to mention while I'm being recorded right now. So other things are, I just think, they wanted more data. This is exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
Bring more data to say, here's the numbers, here's what we have. This isn't calculus. We can't work with imaginary numbers, right? Like we can't make things up.
We do have some magic.
Well,
We have
but-
trending
We have trends.
based on,
Trends,
data.
trends is
Yeah.
calculus,
Yeah.
right? So that's what we need to get past, is that,
yeah,
crystal ball is not showing anything here, right? Like, I don't know.
One of the
more?
big things that we have to get across to the public, that we have to get across to council, is card holdership, which is how you're doing these numbers between one side and the other side,
Mhm.
is circulation,
Mhm.
which is your 1950s public library mentality.
Mhm.
We have to get away from that too. That's just a little sliver of what we do. It doesn't acknowledge programs. It doesn't acknowledge
No.
computer use. It doesn't acknowledge Wi-Fi. These are things that you come in and you participate as a community member, and we don't say you can't come into this program unless we see your card. There are many people, and it was actually one of the pieces that went out in the newsletter last month about the myth of I don't use the library, that you will say, someone tells you I don't use the library, and you're like, didn't you go to jazz in the library last Friday? Oh, but that's not the library. Yes, it is.
Mhm.
Didn't you go to
Exercise.
right, exercise, seniors exercise, or,
Or your-
lifelong learning on Tuesday, I participate in these programs. These are part of the library.
Yep.
We are partnering with people, we're bringing them in.
Yep.
But library is not just a card that gets you a book.
Mhm.
So we need to really expand that piece. The other thing that we don't have access to is looking at our usage of library cards and breaking down the virtual, the digital ones. Because the digital people just authenticate that you have an actual number in our system, but doesn't like tick that this is one postal code
Yeah.
over another.
We can only do so much technologically. wise,
So we
yeah.
can certainly give our stats, and we do every year in the year in review, that says we're number one in programming again. in our size of library. We're the #1 card holdership in our group of around the bay and in our size of library. So there's pieces that we can give, but really what matters on the statistics is what Joanne and Julie were saying. It's not about the usage, it's about the barriers.
Yeah.
It's about the gaps that we can't provide because this building can't handle it. It's about the growth going to a point where we can only handle 12 children in an after-school program, and we have a wait list of 42. So that fills in about 5 minutes on the day. It opens on August 21st, and at 9:30, the phone's gonna be ringing, and they're not gonna answer until 10, and everybody will be at a phone for about 10 minutes. And then the response will be, I'm sorry, we're full.
Mhm.
That's what's happening with us. And those are things that we shouldn't be turning children away. We shouldn't be making parents try to figure out what are they going to do with their children after school.
Yeah.
That's what we need a new building for. And not a new building of here, we need a second building so that we can start to expand.
Yep.
Because the children that are coming from next door are from all over our community. But we know that we can have other programs, we can have teen programs, we can have technology that we can't bring in because our electrical system couldn't handle it.
And so I would also care to mention, or I would like to add to your, the expansion plan. Like I've got a great career or I've had, lots of experience in construction building, construction building planning things. So, for someone to sit anywhere and tell me that you can't possibly build a building for $3 million is ridiculous to me. Because you could start with something. To me, this looks like, okay, well then we'll go back to the drawing board. Here's what we'll start with. At $1.5 million, we'll build us this. And then, but that doesn't mean you can't leave inlaid area for expansion after. And then once you've got that, you built your little $1.5 to $2 million building. And then you get people coming in, you get the cards, in a 5-year plan, let's say 5 years. And then you come back and you say, so this is what the numbers say, we need to keep building, right? That's how I see it.
Yeah, stages, I
You do
agree.
stages. I love that, sorry, but I love, that we're thinking that big is great, right? But
Yeah.
if this is how, to me, to answer your question, I guess more poignantly, in order to get what we know needs to be done and we know the community needs, I think that's the ticket to get there, is to have those ideas, but just start with, okay, well then this is what we're going to propose, because this will only use X number of these development charge dollars. This will build a fine building for said purposes. So I see. So
Yeah, I agree with the staged approach, which will get us to our long-term goal. And I'm thinking too, we know the usage right now, and then can't you apply the same as an assumption for the projections of what we think in terms of growth for residents? And so then, okay, then that means.
We have,
Right, we have those.
that's what we did.
Yeah, those are the colored numbers, right?
Those are the projections. It'll just keep going.
Yeah, so then you can tell council, okay,
Yeah,
based on these projections, our
yeah,
building won't.
we're in really big trouble in 5 years.
Yeah, well, our building won't handle this. And we're already now saying no to people in programming because we can't accommodate it for space reasons. So I think we have the ammunition, it's just packaging in a way that they can relate to and understand.
plus
I would argue not to do staged for one reason.
Oh,
The building costs are climbing so quickly
yeah,
that the 3 million we have today is not worth 3 million tomorrow.
that's true.
So if we were to build the building that we need, you're using debt servicing, which means we take a loan, the council takes a mortgage, and the new development charges that are coming in each year are used to pay that loan off. We would actually be able to build more if we were using the dollars today than if we keep trying to build on, because the development charges are going to become worth less and less on our build site.
So we would need to explain that to council, so they understand, because they're being
Haven't, we wouldn't
fiscally
need to
responsible,
explain that.
and they're feeling like
Get to explain
we're
it.
representing the taxpayers, we can't spend this
And
money.
the
we're kind
development
of
charge
afraid to-
study, which was done by council, includes the numbers right now that are in there that'll be approved after community consultation and everything else. By April, the amount that we assume we're going to get should be planned to make sure it can cover debt servicing. And we lock in the money as of today, and then we know if it's $300,000 a year that you have to pay in debt servicing, we know that's what we're getting currently from our development charges, and that's how libraries get built in Ontario.
But I think we're getting ahead of ourselves, because it was clear that there was people at council who didn't even realize there was a need for more library, period. Therefore, they couldn't get to Craigleith as the site.
I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes, there's never, you know, I mean, I think just getting everybody onto that same page is step
Yeah.
one.
I
Understanding understanding the whole scenario as it relates to community service delivery for the town. To everybody,
Yeah.
right, as us as partners with the town in delivering these services.
Mhm.
And then, and to your point, though, in terms of the program, so that's the next step, is sort of digging into the programs, because you also realize. From a population change in the next 10 years, all the elementary kids are gonna be high school kids, and if we don't have space for teen programs now. That whole cohort, et cetera, so there's sort of, you know, that those population age change needs, but I think, yes, I think it's really like. Let's all just understand there is a need for expanded services. We, you know, I think Sabrina brought that excellent recommendation together to partner with the town in a multi-use space as a way of being really fiscally responsible. Really, you know, here's how we're gonna get the most for our money. Whether it was the farm or whether it's somewhere else, you know, I still think that is probably the most
And
fiscally
if it's not
responsible.
the town, we know daycare wants to partner.
There's other.
And have daycare be the other sort of portion of that building that makes sense from our end, because those are the children during the day that are coming into our programs.
Yeah, so there are a lot of pieces, but I think that's where so that's where we're getting to, and to your point about how to present it to make it clear, we definitely will.
Yeah, I
We're
don't
working
think,
on that, and we
I
will
don't think
definitely
we're
want
there
your
yet.
eyes on it, yeah, we'll need your eyes on it and help sort of making sure that the message is, you know, is clear.
And to play devil's advocate, it seems like some members want to consolidate things that already exist or multi-use. Right, take an existing building and, you know, so their bias might be to improve this site versus adding on another one, so we need to be prepared for that.
Which is another option.
Yeah.
We purchased the lot next door for that purpose in 2015. So that is an option. Expanding this building, you're kind of limited just because of the way the building is done, but there's ways to do it. We worked with the architects, it was there. It's never going to meet the square footage requirements of the community according to any of the guidelines. So the guidelines are 1 square foot minimum per resident, and we're here. There's no way we're gonna get another 10,000 feet onto this building. So what would be the Band-Aid approach? That still in a few years is going to get you to a point where you say, we still need something in Craigleith, but might be involved in a multi-purpose or a multiplex, if that happens to land in the Blue Mountains actual municipality and not a regional outside of the community.
So to clarify then, our role is to clearly express the need for expansion, not necessarily to emphasize how we see the expansion should happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
and I think
we
so,
can have a
give them some, yeah,
I almost go further than that. I don't, maybe it's not necessary, but like almost research, how many times has the library come to council, all previous councils and said, this is what we need. Well, here's the bill, we come, it's this time.
Well, and again, it's how many development charge
Yeah.
bylaws has council passed
Yeah,
stating that the public library needs to have funds.
Yeah.
And that goes back into the early 2000s.
Exactly. You know,
It might go back before that point, because they know when you have a public library in the community,
Yeah.
you have to immediately put that in because it's a need.
I don't know, they want numbers, there's another number too, right? The library board has been in front of council, you know, 99, 2001, 2003, like over and over and over and over, like Councillor Adele said, this has been on the books for a long time, yet nothing was done about it.
And some are new
Decision.
members and don't know that, the specific stuff, how long the time and the details.
Well, and
I
in
can't
fact,
assume
we
they'll-
picked Craig Leaf because we thought they had made a commitment to Craig Leaf.
Yeah,
But we also know that Craig Leaf is a faster growing area.
Is it?
it-
Is it?
there's
It's
3,
not
4
only-
developments coming up.
Right, it's not only faster growing, but there are people who owned properties as chalets that have turned them into full-time that haven't really been counted in the community. So we have, and part of that was COVID, people making the decision to make this their full-time home. So those people took a switch as well.
That's what I was wondering, is when you get to projecting the numbers, I know you projected them for the entire community, but is there some way some of that can be split out in relationship to where the development is happening?
Yes.
Because that will help to point that whether it is Craig Leaf or here or a bit of each. Yeah.
Yeah, to be.
Yeah, that was in that
Yeah.
file that you had, right?
To be showed.
Yeah, so we'll pull that together.
And
The
then,
other question I have is, when libraries open a new branch, there's always a huge jump in membership.
Yes.
And is there a way of going to some comparable communities and say, what was your jump in card holdership when you opened a branch, you know, in that community, so people no longer had to commute to the next town over? That would be
To
pretty-
not anticipate that.
Yeah, so we might-
the problem there though is that we don't want to be, like, we make the argument, if you build it, they will come. The answer could be, well, we can't build it because we can't afford it. Do you know what I mean? That almost sounds like, I mean, there's an infinite number of services that we would all love to have close to us. I think we're better to rely on like expectations and standards about one square foot. I mean, yes, I do want to include it, but I think it makes me a bit nervous. Because I know if I was just sitting there from a fiscal accountability perspective, I'd be like, yeah, and if you build another hospital over there, which would be great, we'd all be thrilled, but. You know, and it would be used, but we can't afford it, right? Like, you just, you just have to walk a bit of a fine line.
Yeah,
I do think it
yeah,
comes back to, I mean, to the point in terms of, I was gonna build on that and say, not just membership, but its usage. So again, as you know, top provider of municipally funded community programming, if we build a building, we will have people, you know, so again, I was gonna say also to find out, so how many more programs were you able to offer? Because you have this extra space, because again, I mean, I think we can do the projections based on what's happening now, and we know where it's gonna go, but I think that's a really, it's good to see what has actually happened in other places.
And you did that analysis of the social return on investment, right?
No, I'm not doing that. No, I was just mentioning it. So I just pulled the Temiskaming,
Yeah.
the one that they're rolling out now that had like
Yeah.
$4 million in return on.
Yeah.
Economic return, but yeah, so that is what Sabrina will be filling in the numbers for, and that we will have by November, because obviously we need that data by then, and so yeah.
Because it
So
was
that's kind
really
of the
tough.
question that I have now is getting onto the council agenda, because we know they're always very full. Are we presenting everything at one time, which was kind of the thinking? Or are we presenting like a piece in September or a piece in October? And then if we are presenting, we need to work out when, because I know we have some logistics, we want to make sure our chair is going to actually be here for the presentation. We want to make sure that the people who have been doing some of the stats are going to be in the room for that presentation as well. So is it something that we want to kind of set a month that I can work with the clerk to get on? Do we want to do everything as one presentation?
Can we look back at what we've committed to again, to bring back?
Well, we basically said the fall. We'd be
But
bringing
what did
back-
we're bringing back
Yeah,
needs assessment,
well, yeah, so the
usage.
full data to council on the usage of LES and CHD. That was their main item, and then we added need assessment report in fall 2023 pertaining to the proposed Craigleaf Library bill. So those are the two pieces I think that you guys are basically creating the story
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
So I think we'd be targeting something like November. But I'm not, I mean, I'm certainly happy to be there, but I'm actually thinking it's you guys who are doing all the work that can tell the story better than I would be able to. I'd be presenting just
Yeah.
not from the inside.
Do we have a
having
date?
about it.
Do we have a date?
We don't have a date. I just need to know what month we want to be aiming towards, and if they want this to come to council, if they want this to come to committee of the whole, I'm assuming council. I'm assuming it's gonna be another joint meeting, so that we have the time to really hit all of the documents, talk about all of the pieces, because it's going to be a lot of material that's given. We have our stats usage that we have to give them. We have sort of that business case piece that gets put into there, so there's quite a number of pieces from the original council resolution.
Well, I would think maybe the later in November you can get, the better. It gives you the maximum amount of time to pull, because it's a lot of work to pull all this stuff together. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
And I also feel that it would be important for the new CEO to have eyes on them. And I mean, and again, because they're gonna be coming from the community and then, you know, it'd be beneficial, but
We
also.
may not have a CEO until end of December or January.
Okay, never mind that.
If they are the CEO, they're going to give the same notice that I've given. And they won't have actually been given an offer until probably September 20th. So October, November, December 20th, that puts you to January 1st.
All right,
But
scratch.
it is possible.
Hopefully it's sooner.
It's possible, but if someone knows they've got the appointment and they've already given the
But I think it's a good
resignation
point
at
not to
home.
decide.
Right, there's no reason, as Lori's saying, that if we know in September that we want to go far into this without the new CEO seeing it, it would just be a case of inviting the person to participate if they're local or on Zoom,
Sure.
just so that there's a bit of, yeah, you don't want someone to prep the next 10 years of your discussions only to find out that you inherited somebody else's thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm a bit wondering if we shouldn't do, I don't know how you feel strategically in terms of the council, whether it's a piecemeal approach or a in-depth approach. I'm inclined to think the in-depth might make more sense because they might forget pieces from an earlier presentation. And building on that would require that memory and clarity.
My concern with the piecemeal doing it as we report by report is that they're going to ask questions that we say are in the next meeting, which feels like you're just not giving them what they want.
Yeah.
And it's not that we're trying to be evasive,
Let's do
it's
it
that
all.
we're doing them in parts. So
Yeah.
I think one is a stronger approach.
Yeah, I sit on that one too.
Is there any, are there any points, just thinking that, you know, this is information we are providing to help decision-making, council decision-making. I don't know if there are any points pre-December that are, you know, that we need the information.
Like the multiplex or what's happening?
I don't know, I'm just, you know, are there budget, you know, quarterly budget decisions, are there other things that are on the agenda that would happen
Happen now.
before December?
There's
So
nothing,
again,
there's nothing from a budget standpoint that we need to make sure is in the next budget, because everything would be coming out of development charges.
Yes.
So the funds are already present. There's $3 million in the bank, that if council said, we want now a, you know, industry standard to come in and do the feasibility study or the space plan on that,
Yeah.
or even give us schematics to look at, all of those are gonna come out of the funds that we have.
And for us in our planning, then I think, yeah, I'm thinking November, because sort of the information is going to be there. We need alignment to proceed with those studies in the next steps, because we know that this happened. As a board, we know that our commitment to the community is as such. Okay, so I would say November, I'm gone in the middle of the November 14th, I think, board meeting I'm available, but and my vote would be a November meeting. I think we can do it.
Also, I think strategically getting in front of council multiple times.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. I have to take the card to your daughter's, which she returns the phone with you. So we should apologize.
My husband,
Hi, nice to meet you all.
Hey, you doing?
Sorry about that.
wedding nonsense.
Oh,
Yes, that was.
I just want to be sure you're here.
That was
Thank you. Sorry.
Dad said, of course we'll pay for your wedding. Which is now 100 people. Of course we'll do that.
In terms of the joint meeting with council, we're not committed to a particular council day because we're asking for a special meeting,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah. So we can, you know, if we get,
We wouldn't do Mondays, we wouldn't do Tuesdays unless it's the odd month for their council meeting. We wouldn't be in a regular meeting, we're picking a day. So I will poll after the meeting, what the last week of October to like the second week of November aways are from everybody, and then give it to the clerk to try to build a date. And that way, even though we build it now, it's on the books, we don't have to worry about it, we all know the date, council plans around it, and we don't miss anything.
so I was suggesting later in November.
Yeah,
You kinda
later.
went Mid-November, even October there.
No October.
We will get the dates from everyone after the meeting.
So was somebody going away? Were you going away in mid-November?
October.
Oh, October, so you're back
8th
in
to
November?
25th, yeah,
Oh, good.
but I think these two are the more important people and.
I'm around in November. I just have one out of town.
Yeah, we'll get those after
Early.
the meeting and we'll get that cleared up.
And
And I'll
then
get it off.
back to the sort of coffee meetings with councilors is once we sort of know we're heading to in November, we can take a look at the September meeting and what we might take to our one-to-one meetings. So that, and because that's the other way of getting them to say, oh, well, this seems odd, and then we, you know, either answer the question or we know that we have to answer it before it hits a council meeting.
and to clarify questions that they have.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And so we thought some other slides that we're working on, so we wanted to start with population growth. Which is why I showed you and just talk through our assumptions about, you know, Census Canada versus actual. We want to have a couple slides on usage and we want to separate out digital and, because, you know, do you even need a library anymore? So what we're going to address that, we're going to show digital use, which is growing, which is great, but so is physical. Then we want to do some of the circulation by site, east and west, and show, you know, percentage population, percentage youth, with the caveat that they can't use it if it's not there. Then we would go into some needs, gaps, and trends. Then some options, and we'll have time to run this by you too, if you think this is timely or not, but we, you know, just to acknowledge that, I think it's really important that we acknowledge that there's several building options we would be willing to participate in discussing. If it is part of this multiplex, we know there's huge complications, but like, we want to make this a win-win, right? So we could talk about some of the options, like we could just say, we could just try to build up, but you know, what are the realities of that? Those are sort of the buckets that we had. Yeah, oh, and Joanne wanted to tie it to their own strategic priorities, which.
I don't want you to tie it, it was just again, as a getting reminded,
Reminder.
same page, just. Reminding, so as I look through our strategic plan and I look through the future story, you see that, you know, I mean, and.
It's part of
you know,
it.
we're absolutely lining up
We're aligned.
and, you know, our strategies are directly delivering on the future plan.
Yeah,
Right, the
yeah.
future sort of
I
sustainability
think
plan,
that's
so
important, right?
there's,
Yeah.
it's, we're not separate things, and again, so it's just more, part of that, the point about sharing, the picture is, we're all doing, this is where the library fits in with the total plan, and then here's where, this is the population and the services.
When you say total plan, you mean the towns of
The towns, yeah.
I think
Future
that's
story is what they call it.
Which is the sustainability plan.
Yeah, well, I think linking it to that won't hurt,
Yeah,
because we're saying we're following your goals.
Yeah, yes.
we're trying to make life easier.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point to bring forward,
Yeah.
to pull out of the darkness that, this really.
This will help you.
So you just have to be fair, you council have a lot of stuff, right? Our focus, we all have our own day-to-day stuff. But we're dedicated library, so we can't assume that they know all this or remember it all, because there's a lot of stuff to remember, so. I just feel like that's important, just to, here's where we fit as part of the total plan.
Yeah.
And services.
No, I think it's a great.
And then the population and the work that Julia's been doing, thank you for the chart, I could not figure out how to do a chart like that.
With an emphasis on the programming as well. And
Yes,
I think
yes.
they're not thinking of that. They're thinking, going back to Sabrina's, the vision of 1950, you bring in a card, you get a book.
Yeah.
Well, the very question of what does the library do is insulting, first and foremost, like I can't even, I don't know how those words like fall out of somebody's mouth.
Was that out?
I'm not gonna
Yeah.
mention who it was,
No,
but it's just like, how, like. Pardon, that's not a question.
well, there's a whole educational value, and that just comes with the education back there.
Well, I spent, this is not to do with council at all, but a number of friends, I talked about the arts walk, and a number of friends said, wasn't that a great idea? I said, and it's a library that did it. What? That's not library service. Yeah, it is library service. It's community building, and that's what we're doing. And so they're, even my friends, right?
Well, yes, and I think that's, again, it's just everybody, so many people think library, think that's, it's just about the books and the whole 20%. I think that's so much, because learning so much in this study year, right?
Related,
20% services and.
But maybe that also indicates you need to do more marketing. You want to use that word, how do you educate the community to say, we've got our finger in all these different programs, projects, events.
well, I think it starts with the school, right? And I wish we had a better form of communication through our school board trustee or whoever it is that's supposed to like relay what we're doing, right? Like, that's how I know so much about this place, is because it was a different time. But this place was integral to the school,
Still is.
still is.
We are their library.
Anyhow.
Okay, so is there anything else on the project that you guys are actively involved in at this stage?
No, I think we need to keep going.
Yeah, we need to set up another time
Yeah.
to connect on next steps, and then I think, and depending on, because of meeting time or whatever, it might be that we kind of say, here's a draft document, we just share it through email and we'll get thoughts and questions. We'll think about that and make sure, just getting everybody's.
Because Chris and I are both away for the
Yeah.
September board meeting. So, but you're here, so,
Okay.
yes.
Well,
Yes.
thank you. You guys did a lot of work, and interesting. Good, yeah. Well, it's interesting.
Yeah.
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 Well, and the other advantage from my perspective is that you came from outside the library field. So you're looking at it with completely fresh eyes, which is one of the reasons I attended the first meeting and said, oh, you don't need me on Medicare. That would actually be a problem because I know too much. So it's really good perspective because you're coming at it more with the counselors
Yeah.
side or lens. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So I think that's fabulous. So thank you for taking this on and doing such a thorough job.
Well, we have to thank Sabrina for patiently, we were adding up all sorts of things, huh? We're just 80 and then 72 and. Yeah.
The sort of B section is multi-use facility intel and next steps. So I guess it's the meeting with council, there was this discussion with Collingwood about a facility that would serve both of their needs. Once again, I see.
I don't think
nothing-
that what they're doing now is looking at one facility for both. They're looking at the regionality of usage. It may recommend one that is shared, but it's going to be recommending what is needed in basically this end of the region. Weeford wasn't able to participate before, so it's just going to be the two, but I don't necessarily think that that equates to that there's a plan for a joint facility, right?
No, it's this, the feasibility.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're multi-uses,
This-
really looking at the two individual municipalities, determining what's there.
We've invited our neighbors. We're trying.
Yeah.
They're already rejecting it, right?
And it may or may not mean that the facilitators make a decision with the recommendation that it's one, it's.
Yeah,
But it's a feasibility study I'm really asking, but I think I expressed that very poorly. But it's a multi-use facility study that I guess Blue Mountain and Collingwood are thinking of pursuing jointly. But that's also the study that council said, oh, the library should be involved in this.
Right.
yeah,
So,
no, that was. Really quiet.
Yeah, and
so
I-
I just don't know what to do about that.
I think that's a piece that we need to just keep working with the staff on,
Okay,
because at this point, it's conceptual. At the meeting, we were told that we would be a stakeholder, but every resident in the community is a stakeholder. We need to be more than a stakeholder, we need to be a partner. We were told at the meeting that we did not participate in the leisure activities plan. And why are we being asked if we want a library now? Because it's not in the plan. We weren't offered an opportunity to participate. There were one-on-one conversations with me and the consultants. And all of the work that the previous council directed our library board to do, we partnered and had myself and members of the board meeting with the town staff about what we needed after the 2018 piece going through. And at that point, there was a statement that said, we understand that Elder Shore is a community hub, we don't need to worry about that. So that was like off to the side. And then there was a case of talking about what was needed in Craigleaf. And that went for a few months, and then none of that information made it into the study. So we're very limited in where we were put into the leisure activity, in part because they were looking really, when you look at the focus on it, it's trails, it's waterfront. It didn't get into the stuff that we were doing. And we thought that was a big miss. So now we're being told you didn't participate, when the reality is we attempted to participate. We had one-on-one conversations, but it just didn't make it into what the scope was or what the consultants thought the scope was. So we have to fight that there was work that was done outside of that with council that should still be a living memory because everybody is still on work.
So Laura, just for clarity though, are you speaking to, like, directed to the June 14 point?
Yes.
That the council directs the director of community services to ensure there is full consultation with the Blue Mountains Public Library Board in the development of the multi-use feasibility study.
yes.
So at this point, they've announced, regardless of the fact that they're doing it, you know, sharing the cost of the study with Collingwood, they are doing a multi-use feasibility study. And council has directed our involvement in some way. So at this point, does this mean we should have, you know, is there one of us that needs to say, okay, we need to reach out to the director of community services and say, okay, you know,
We need to be part of
we
it.
need to be part of this, understand, you know, share agendas, and we decide when it makes sense, so that we're not, I mean, there are points that won't make sense for us to be part of the discussion, but where.
Well, there's $100,000 being spent
Mhm.
at minimum by this council on this study, which is looking at what the needs are.
Mhm.
That's not something we would ever be able to do, and why would we pay again when council's already paying? So we just need to make sure that the library service is part of that scope, which makes us a partner in the work, because when they are asking questions about library service, they need to come back here to ask those questions.
So I guess the question.
So
is,
how
what's
do
the
we
action?
do that? Yeah.
What's the action step? Is the action step literally to say which one of us wants to volunteer to contact the director and say,
I will
I'm the
contact the
person,
director,
and-
that's, you know,
and
usually it's
that's
operational,
what-
operational,
okay?
and get at
Okay.
least the notation done that we feel this is what needs to happen.
But isn't part of the problem of definition of what they're talking about? Because at that council meeting, they started off, excuse me, by talking about multi-use recreational facility.
Yes,
And then we got into multi-use facility, generic. And so,
well, it went from the library with some additional pieces of service to the $65 million
Right.
project, which is 10 to 20 years in the future, is the way it was
But we-
described.
started off as being two different types of
Very
buildings.
different.
And then it got muddied, if you like the word, in terms of trying to figure out what we're talking about here.
So, I mean, what I can say to that is that whoever's chairing the meeting. Needs to drive home that I've been saying at more meetings is that let's focus on what the discussion, like, let's focus here. Like, and that's what happens, is that things get off the rails.
Yeah.
And you fall down Alice in Wonderland's little rabbit hole and you don't know where you're gonna pop out.
Yeah.
And that's what happened there, and everything got so confusing and convoluted. And it was, you know, it was just detrimental, like, but that's where whoever the chair is, you know, needs to have control of the meeting to say, well, okay, wait, focus
So
here.
how do we get back on track now?
That depends
Because
on the chair.
The chair of what?
Well, the sheriff council and the discussion of counselors and staff brought it from the building that we were talking about.
Yeah.
To the $65 million building. In their own words, that's 10 to 20 years away.
So if you're talking about the chair, whoever chairs the council section that deals with community services.
I am the chair of community services.
Ooh,
I run a good meeting.
so,
I run
so
a tight
it's,
meeting.
so it's you that has to help us.
So,
Yeah.
no, but at that particular time, I was not chairing. the
No, I
meeting.
know, but so I'm thinking about how do we move this forward?
But-
Because if we, staff to staff, if the leisure study was the example, leisure activity center was the example of how it should work, well, then it didn't work for us.
Hmm.
So how do we make sure we insert ourselves this time around in a way that does work for us? And so that's what, so you're suggesting the chair should be doing that?
Yeah.
So
Is that good?
is
That'll
that,
be me.
that'll be you, and then what do you need from us to help you?
This is November
Do
meeting,
that.
he's gonna chair it?
No,
No, no,
no, I'm the chair of community services. What I'm saying too, right, is that. At that meeting, when everything just went off the rails, we started falling down, spending $85 million on. Google or whatever, that's where, you know, the chair of that meeting needs to keep a hold. Otherwise, because from now on, like, I'm sick of that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm tired of it already. I haven't even been there a year yet. I'm not having it anymore, so I'll probably just start bringing up points of order.
Yeah.
Right, because that's what I can do. Is, you know, point of order, focus, right? Stop
Which
this.
building are we talking?
This
about?
needs to stop, right? So I will be happy to be the point of order guy. Because I have no problem with that.
So as it pertains to this recently announced multi-use facility
The feasibility study,
feasibility study.
yeah, that is just in the that is a preliminary stage of sitting down with another municipality. It barely got voted on at Colin. Okay, it barely passed. That was a 5-4 vote.
Okay.
I think it was voted down the first time.
It was voted down the first time.
Right, so just for full clarity, like, right now, is there somebody on staff who has, like, we're about to pay, or we have paid people to begin this feasibility
We
study?
haven't even paid anybody
Or
anything.
we've agreed to, it's a line item, so
Yeah.
there is a next step, there's going to be a meeting set up
They will be.
with the consultants
Yeah.
of the
At this-
study.
well, it won't
To
even be
establish, to
at this
establish
point.
the parameter, or sorry.
At this
first step
point,
will
it's
be-
going to be community services to community services,
Yeah.
and parks and rec.
Right, established.
And CAO to CAO, who are going to have to determine what is the scope.
And they'll establish terms of reference and the whole thing. Yeah,
Okay.
it's gonna be a while. It's gonna be
But then those terms of reference, they come back to council for approval,
most likely.
most likely.
So if we can say to the
So
chair.
that's where we're
We'll
working
see.
now to try to get into the scope.
Yeah.
But if they come back to council and we are not in a position that we think it needs to be as a library,
Mhm.
there needs to be a deputation from the board saying, you said this is what you wanted in this part of the resolution, we are still not a key member of the voice and not being asked questions about library services. Can we adjust the scope?
Yeah.
Do we want to be part of that?
Yeah, that's what I'm just thinking.
Like,
Why are we? It's a 20-year thing.
And we need to be, because again, if you're not in it,
Okay,
Yeah.
we need to be in it, but this needs to keep moving
Oh,
forward.
yeah, this is absolutely moving forward. This is absolutely, but in parallel, if there are discussion, because we are moving forward with getting everybody to understand that we need expanded
Yeah,
facilities for services. If there is a study happening that's talking about facilities that we might be able to actually deliver those, like.
it's also a way of
So
looking at
they're-
that for
So it's a
10 years.
parallel, so I think the first step in my mind is, yes, is you're contacting the CAO or the director of community services. And saying, as it pertains to delivery, like what council has requested is. We need, the board has requested a copy of the draft of terms of service so that we can have of terms of the study. Just to make sure.
Because council has directed that we should
Council
be
has
involved
directed
in the
that, so we
development.
just need to be able to ensure that, you, and help you just identify what are the library considerations.
and a key piece I think that we need to keep bringing forward is, yes, the library board is separate and distinct. And you have a purview here, but this is a municipal facility. This is on their asset list, we do not own it. So when you just divorce the library from anything that you're looking at, you're actually hurting your own asset list.
Yes.
So we need to keep bringing back the fact that this is a building that you own, and yes, you're going to be maintaining it. This is something that we fill in what the needs are and what you do in the building, but we've got to get them to stop thinking that this is somehow not their building and not their stuff.
But I am concerned if we try so hard to make sure we're part of this scope and membership. That immediately, everybody will check, okay, they're looked after, we don't have to deal with this for another 20 years.
wait, yeah, exactly.
Now you just keep coming back and saying, hello, we're still here, because we still want to do this.
Well, I mean, I do sort of see your concern. I'm hoping the work that you guys are doing in the story, we can tell them in the hall. That we prove the case that they need to be doing something, and they also have the DC, the development charges to do so. But I just don't want to be accused that, but we told you to be involved in this and you didn't
Yeah.
get involved. They said, well, we'd be happy to get involved, and we tried.
Yeah.
We want to have to be able to defend that.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
And there were comments from counselors that we can't make a decision until we see this study. So if we're not actively throughout that study, that like they might get all of our information and say, that's great, you've proven that you need it. Now we have to wait for the study to come out, and then you're not in the study. So we have to be in that study, because a lot of feedback was, this is great, bring us back your needs, but we still need to complete this study, which could be a year. So going in November may very well be a case where they say, thank you, we're gonna table this. And we'll get back to this when the study is done, which is probably 6 months before it even goes out for a tenure. And then another, 6 to 8 months of doing the study before it comes back to council. So we're in for a wait for that particular study. And yes, we want to keep pushing, but they were very clear that study needs to happen. So there's probably going to be a hurry up and wait for us.
Yeah, I think this hitting them over the head again with the history of what's already been brought forward multiple times might be worthwhile.
And then, the third point or thing we're addressing is the needs assessment report. While it's pertaining to the proposed Craigleaf Library build. Yes, it's pertaining to that, but essentially this is a needs assessment for library services, and what I'm hearing now, thinking about is we also, the time frame.
Yeah.
So, we're gonna have wait lists, that you're gonna have, we're gonna have a community and parents in the community upset with the fact that we don't have programming services for our children. So are you okay with them screaming at you for the next 3 years, or do we actually need to start, not waiting for a 20-year survey or a response? So I'm thinking now that we, adding in that in terms of the needs or feelings, also the timeline and expectations, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, I'm hoping at least that by providing all this information in November, that there's going to come with that a sense of urgency, so that we're not put on the platform of 20-year projections of bills.
It's already been 20 years.
Yeah, so you can say we've already played it at 20 years.
So the next step actually with that portion is you, Sabrina, getting hold of the Director of Community Services and probably the CAO on how to fit into that.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. The third item sort of under this overall response to council heading was the Craiglee Community Working Group. And all they did at the council meeting was to send a library presentation to them. And then we've seen that the CCWG from that piece that
Mhm.
somebody would back directly back that Joanne shared with us, is that their first focus is on safe, active transportation. And then, but then at council, the other day, they also referred the name change business, or name, actually not change, but correction.
Correction of the original
Yeah,
name,
come
yep.
back to what the heritage registration is. They've referred that to the working group, really just, I guess, for information, right? Or that there'll be a consultation at some point.
And then the CAO said, this is not their mandate, and they're being very specific on what they're doing.
Yes,
So it will be there for information, but we're not, has nothing to do with transportation or the zoning of the areas that they say is their other priority.
so should we be doing anything at this stage with that working group? Do we wait and see what they say their second focus is? Do we try to influence what their next focus is? Any thoughts on that?
Well, it's not a bad thing to have a conversation, right? Because as you are, well, funny as you mentioned, they've already asked to meet with me tomorrow morning, or no, in a week's time.
The working group, oops.
Yeah, there's some people of the community, of the working group. So I'd be happy to wear both hats for that, because like, I'd really be interested to know what it is, where does it go?
Yeah.
Or unless you guys have questions or suggestions of what you'd like to know.
Well, I don't know
I
whether
think
they-
with me.
yeah, are they looking at anything really beyond safe transportation? And parking lots and that sort of thing. Like, I know they're talking about creating 6 zones. It'd be interesting to know what their zones are and where they think, where they think they're going. And, we would be interested in participating or talking about library service when they're at that point where they're
Mhm.
thinking about that.
There's gotta come a point where community services
Mhm.
builds into their need. It might not be their first objective, but when they get to that point, most definitely the library needs to be part of that discussion. But
Cause I don't even think they have a term of reference yet.
they're still,
There's no, and or any appointed members that I'm aware of, not yet.
So at this point, the first question is safe active transportation to where?
Oh, yeah.
So if we have 20% of their population using the library and they want safe active transportation here.
I want
That's just,
clarification
I mean,
on the
just-
actual committee. And this is something I'm gonna go to the CAO and ask. The town is saying they're not yet established because they haven't done terms of reference and call for members. And then everything coming out of the Ratepayers Association is CCWG. It appears as if council is sanctioning the ratepayers group to be their group.
Mhm.
It's the same name. It's confusing.
Yeah.
Is it the same group? Council is saying that they have a direction that's on transportation. Ratepayers Association is saying they have it on that. So The CCWG material that's coming out is from the Blue Mountain Ratepayers Association.
Yeah,
Council is saying there is a group and we should be working with them, and it's their working group. It seems very confusing, and I just want to make sure that if we actually are reaching out
you're
to
talking.
the
great
Ratepayers Association, that we are talking to the right group.
Yeah.
So I think.
Well,
that's
they're
something we
already
need to-
reaching out if you're meeting with them, so there must be somebody formed who's doing this.
They have, because no one,
Well, is this a committee of council? Is council sanctioning this group to do this work? Because council told us who we had to meet with.
Yeah.
But they said it's their committee.
it's a working group, so.
Right, a working group, and this group is active, and we believe we're going to the Ratepayers Association's working group to speak to them. Is that the same body the council told us to go to?
Right, and that's the thing, like I think usually the SOP, standard operating procedures, that they would put forward names. And then we would, out of the, well, first would be terms of reference would be created, and then we would agree on the terms of reference. Of which they would put forward names, of which we would select a number, however big or small the group's supposed to be. And along with that would be a dedicated from council, I imagine, I think generally would be a chair and another member, or just a chair that's a council member. I like, because somebody has to be in charge. Like, and a staff, and there'd be staff member attached with that too, so. I'll talk to anybody, I'll listen to whatever they have to say, I don't know, it'd be interesting to hear what they already want to talk about, because they don't officially exist yet. So
Well, I
it's,
know, yeah, and here it's presented as the town, BMRA and the Village Association came together to form a working group to
Yeah.
address various issues of concern to the fast growing Craigleith area. That certainly sounds like it involves the library, and it certainly sounds like it's the town group, but there's no reference to, and we will be looking at our terms of reference. They just mentioned who attended and what they hope their next steps will be. All of which start with the town will create a map, delineate 6 zones, establish a dedicated web page, and the group has committed to nominating someone from each of the 6 zones to participate in the working group. So it really is
yeah, I don't know,
confusing.
yeah,
Well, they're literally saying that this is
Providing
absolutely
I know.
saying the town. And I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying,
That's
as
a big
a Blue Mountain ratepayer, and I get this notification. I'm under the impression that this is the town working group, but I have seen, you're right, nothing official from the town that says this is the working.
And I'm
group.
being told that the
Yeah.
group, that the terms of reference haven't been set and approved, that the members have not been appointed. So that's why I'm saying, where are we supposed to go? Because we've been instructed to go.
because we decided that before we took break, right, and right before, and. We've only had 2 meetings, 2 committee of the whole meetings this
Yeah.
week, so I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I think at
I'll
that,
reach out to the CAO on that piece, and
Yeah.
again, we speak.
because at the joint council meeting, the CAO made the announcement, and he kind of implied that he was already talking to some people. So like, he had his contacts, and whether they were the committee members or whatever, but so things are happening.
Yes.
But they're not formalized, is probably.
No, I don't
So
think,
it's really a simple, where's the official notification from the town?
yeah,
It says this is the working group that we're talking about, and terms of reference will be available at such and such a time, right? That's,
But they're representing themselves as being the town.
Because right now, the ratepayers who do not represent everybody in town, only people who pay, they are paid members, that's a really important thing to know.
yeah,
Anybody, you have to pay to belong to the ratepayers.
was it $25 a year?
It's not excessive, but yes,
Yeah,
yeah, but it's a paid membership.
Yeah.
So they don't represent everybody.
Notwithstanding their name.
that's where it also gets confusing, right, because
Yes.
technically everyone that pays taxes is.
Is a ratepayer, yes, yes. Can I suggest for upcoming meetings, under community hubs, that we have sort of several discussion points? And one would be the council response committee. I guess that would be dealing with the data you're working on and the whole needs assessment piece. And so that's a major report going to council. That we have another section on the multi-use facility. multi-use feasibility study, I'll try and use the right terminology here. And a third section on the Craig Leaf Community Working Group
Wait, did you say 3 sections of what?
agenda.
So we're talking each of these items for updates.
So standing
Moving
items,
forward.
standing
Yeah,
items
okay,
under
moving
community
forward,
house.
yeah, okay.
Because I think we need to just keep tracking on this stuff right through
Mhm.
the fall. Okay, great. Thank you very much. I'm going to move on to the next item, which is the CEO services update for August, please.
All right, so I have distributed it to everyone, so you certainly have that,
Wait, distributed it in the package?
in the passage, yeah. So we have. Something is not wanting to share every time I try to. There we go. The statistics are something just sort of to watch. It's now it's totally wild. Yeah, something's not sharing. I have the statistics in here for both June and July because we didn't have the June meeting. You can see cardholders are 4827 or 28, of course, that's not everyone. Circulation and all of these information, we're going to keep updating the stats for the committee. We're using the July, but we'll keep going, and by the time we get to November, we'll be able to prorate out a really good expectation for the year, working from October back. A few items that are in here we just couldn't answer because of vacations. People who have the code to be able to get the gallery attendance will be able to get that for you next month. Adult programs, obviously there's a big bump in there because we had the July, we had the arts walk in there. All of our sort of family is under the adult area. Website views, we still have, 11,000 people who are coming to our webpage to be able to access information. So we know that they're getting what they need. We track where they go. We track how long they're on the page. We see what their method of finding things are, and we pay attention to that to be able to improve in the future. Outside of our numbers, I don't know if anybody had
Can you
any
just go back,
questions.
just for a quick, as I was looking at them, and it's great, and this is the, so, sorry, the. Your part of the chart, yeah. So tours and classroom visits are to both locations?
George, we're going out to do
you're
something in a community where we're doing things. We have those sort of like outreach pieces or tours, and then we bring in our school children, we bring in school buses for whatever. So any of those things are what happens, and obviously July and August usually is 0. You may get, a small group that's coming in for a tour at the museum, but those are different than just attendance. Those are, planned.
Right.
Our numbers that you see usually, 431, 256, we're already at 2,600. Those are the amount of times, almost all, that the classrooms from Beaver Valley Community School come here.
Yeah.
So of those 2,600 to date, those all account for children coming in from kindergarten up through grade 8, grabbing materials, grabbing information, coming for a program sometimes when the smaller classrooms come in. So it really is an important part of what Ellie Shore is connected to.
That's great. And these are number of attendees.
Yes.
Okay, so the children's program, so the children's programs, those are like after school programs, et
Correct.
cetera, teen, et cetera, so that's attendees. If we could, I'd also like to know the actual number of programs, so were there 3 or 10?
We took those statistics, I just haven't.
Yeah,
put them in there. I can add that onto our list. to
I
be-
do that one for the data group, I don't know how much more we want, I think. I just, it's say, there's 30 programs. And so many attendees.
Yep, I'll
So
add that
again,
as a line.
Because it is that number of programs that we're providing, so, we have.
I will add that as a line between the tours and classroom
Yeah.
visits and the children's program, so each of the programs, children, teens, adults, seniors, we'll each have.
Yeah, it's important, yeah, the number of programs offered each month.
At some point, I think you're going to need to define or explain what programs means, because I'm not sure everybody really understands that. So we talked about this library as being a community hub. But I suspect since council members don't participate in those things, they won't know what kind of programs are being provided.
Okay. We can put that as a note.
I would do it as a note. I don't see it on the statistics, but when you've got your total programs, then what are we talking about in terms of types of programs?
Yeah. If there's any questions on the report, I'm happy to. Obviously, Craigleaf name change is in the works. There is, we are currently open for comments. I don't know when the date for closing is. I haven't been given that information from council. I don't know if there's going to be an actual community meeting. I'm assuming there will be, where then all of the comments are presented to council and we can respond and answer questions. Usually at a community meeting, that's the way it would go. So I would hope that we're answering the questions and it's not coming through as council reports. I do recommend that if anybody is looking for answers that we are putting them to the letter correspondence that we sent to council in the June 14th package and not the council report. The council report was not written by us and not vetted by us. So it was the interpretation of reading the letter, which is fine. It went to council in that way, but there are things in there that are not accurate. We made the decision about the name change after conversing about the ski club, saying, we're talking to the ski club about this, but really we should be going back to our original name. Council made an error when they changed the name. They did not go through this process. It was a committee who made the name, and they never changed it with the ministry, which is a heritage designation. And the official name is the Craigleaf Station. They set it at that in 2003 when they did their program with the Heritage 5. And with that, it's in the cultural list the council made a huge report on in 2005. This committee changed the name. The Craigleaf Heritage Committee wanted the name changed and council did it, but didn't go through the same process. So now we're trying to go back and fix what's there. And I think that one of the comments that came from Alex, it was right on. What are the costs and needs to detangle this with the ministry? The answer is none, because the ministry has the right name.
So why are they fighting it? That's what I don't understand.
There is a policy that clearly states steps.
Yeah.
They are following the steps.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So council is not fighting it. They're having questions with us and there are people who have opinions, but the process is the process. I needed to write a statement. I needed to send it to the clerk. The clerk then sent it to the senior management team who vetted it. At that point, I got the response, there are no issues with this and we're moving it forward.
Okay.
It then goes to council by me making the request to council, and then there has to be a community report.
Mhm.
The mistake was on June 14th, we put in the request. And then on August 14th is when the council report came. They should have come at the same time,
Oh, okay.
because then nobody reads letters of correspondence and they only saw the report. So they're basing it on the report. There needs to be, according to the policy, a community process. So opening it up for people to do letters to the clerk is the official way to get your comments in. There then should be some evening where there's going to be an hour where we're open, we answer questions. And then everything is brought to the council table and they will read the comments that were received in writing. And the people who wanted to hear things will be there and they can make comments on the process as their 3-minute commentary. And then we should have the opportunity to open with some information and explanation, and then possibly at the end, be able to respond to some of the questions that were posed. At that point, council will simply receive that, close that process, and then it'll come to a future council meeting, usually the next council meeting for a vote.
Well, I think what's most important, the most important aspect of all this is that when it was built and it was opened, it was called
The Craigslist Station.
case closed. The rest is a misnomer. The restaurant, you know, wasn't even that good of a restaurant. It was there. And it was there.
The depot is just paying homage to
They-
the restaurant, and that's it.
But the biggest important thing is that it's not forgotten. It's still got a little, you know, there's still a little corner of fame for the restaurant. It's in the museum. Case closed. The rest is a misnomer, right? Like,
So how do you submit for public consultation?
Email or a letter to the clerk.
So if that clerk doesn't receive anything, what happens?
Letters are coming in.
Oh, they
Yeah.
are.
I
Mostly-
receive them as they come.
mostly, Not
And
nice.
usually it's the negative letters that come because people who think it's a good idea don't say anything.
Yeah, that's right.
So we already have letters that are coming in, and they will be the ones right off the bat, usually that are very much against it. So we need to get out to people that, if you think, even though you say, well, of course it is, it should be, it was the right name, it's the name that it's legally registered under.
Yeah.
Council's naming is not legal in the sense of it's a heritage site and it has a legal name. It's their facility, they can do with what they want, but it is legally named by council to the ministry, the Craigslist Station, and nobody changed it.
So it creates business challenges. And it creates business and administrative challenges because the government recognizes it as the Craigslist Station. And when you try to submit something as a Craigslist Depot,
Yeah.
doesn't exist.
so, you know, I think there's even just a fundamental administration reason to.
Well, even when I came in 2017.
Yeah.
And I told members of council staff that the building had heritage designation, they said it didn't. And then when they searched it, they said it doesn't come up, it didn't, and I had to tell them it was Craigslist Station. Because they didn't know, and they were trying to make changes in the building that we had to say, you got heritage designation here. There's only certain things in certain places that we can do.
So they don't pay attention, like you might get 3 letters of negativity.
They'll read those and they'll take it into account with everything else.
And then you can say there's 7,000 other residents here who don't care. So don't they count?
No,
A lack of.
your opportunity
Lack
to
of letters.
speak,
Yeah.
your opportunity to speak is when you have it. And if people are going to be indifferent because they think it's a good idea and they don't want to say it, we may be stuck then with the Craigslist Heritage Depot, which is a known name but inaccurate, and then we will have to go through the process of working with the ministry to ask permission to change from the legal name.
So how do we, is there a public meeting?
The public meeting will be set by the clerk. I haven't been given any dates or times, so when I get those, and I also get the date of the ending of letters, I will make sure that goes out to the board.
So right now, as one of our key messages, important, have your say.
Yeah, I think that's important too.
And
Could the key message not also say to revert to the original?
Historic.
Well, I think it's important, and so that's why I was gonna ask the question is, I believe our key messages, it's all right for us to say, the library is recommending that we revert to the original and official name,
And we request community members to send letters.
and we're requesting, yes, you know, but have you. Okay.
And importantly, there are people saying things on Facebook. They can say all they want on Facebook. That's not official.
Okay.
The only thing that matters is the letter that is given to the clerk.
Mhm.
It's the only correspondence that goes into the record.
Should the board be sending another letter?
I think the board should send a letter, board members should send letters.
Oh, I wondered about
Yeah.
that. We don't have a vested in or biased interest. That matters. I don't know.
Well, I mean, even, I just find it really interesting that the Craigslist working group, when they sent out they're posting. It's the beautiful new Craigleith station refurbished back to 1886. That is the image that they used as their letter, because it is the gateway of Craigleith.
Yeah.
And we need to bring it back for people to understand that the reason why Craigleith is because of a ski hill. And this was the way that people got here, was the Craigleith station. We can pay homage to a restaurant, but the town did not pay, and we did not get government funding of $500,000 to memorialize a restaurant.
Exactly.
It's for an 1800s rail station that the station has been there since 1872 with that name.
So should we be sending a letter as a board to the clerk saying that the library board supports a change to this Craigleith station and reiterate again the reasons why we're doing so?
Yes,
Yes, that would be great.
I'll use our letter that we sent with the
Yeah.
facts in there. I will retool some of the new things that we've heard from the community and send that to you for feedback.
Okay, and then we could, as individuals, we could send that out to our friends and saying, hey,
If you agree.
yeah, if you agree, we'd like you to write the,
Yeah.
Take a moment,
we
write
can
the
send us
clerk,
that letter.
and get away
what
to-
we've done.
yeah.
And certainly then you can distribute that because it's public.
Yeah,
It's from the board, which makes it public immediately, and then the clerk will be making that letter public. That gives those talking points in there. so
well,
that
it
people
gives,
understand.
it gives facts.
Right,
instead of-
right.
Opinion.
That's all that I had from the staffing end.
okay. So anything else on the service update? Saying nothing, other business, this is a notice about the policy review that will be coming up at December 21st meeting. That's the stuff that's already been put out to you, so you've had more than a month to to read through a lot of policy. Then
That was
the,
in the July,
I think we said
Originally, we were going to do it in July and we had
yeah.
timing issues, and then we thought that there was a bigger issue of getting the council response.
Yeah, I'm just
Yes.
referring, I came across it, but I just want to make sure it's the July.
I will move the policies into the right folder now, into September for you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So that next item is the Q2 report.
All right, Alma's back up.
Come back, Al. So we're looking at we're about to look at the Q2 report. Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to point out in the actual columns, it still says budget 2022, it should be 2023. Does anyone have any? Oh, let's let we can see it.
Definitely something that doesn't want to share. We'll talk about it after.
Are there any questions around the section, the current standing of the accounts and the funds? This is very similar to the Q1 report. There's just been slight increase in the open reserve savings.
Right, just the interest that would have been from that, and we have now received the check from council. So after this was released, so I will update that information for our next.
Okay, the what items that say expected from TBM, those are
Yes,
the ones we
okay.
have received.
We've been waiting for funds to be transferred.
Okay, good. And then moving on to some seeing notifications. So moving on to the Q2 variance. Are there any questions people want to ask about this report? It's flew by quickly. There we go. So we're halfway through the year, so a percentage like 49%, 44% are pretty close. There's a couple that are a bit out of whack. We've done very well in our own source. We're at 616% received. Is there a particular reason why that's really jumped?
We've had some really good art, so the commission is up. Our own source is, other sales that we do. So,
Just-
yeah, just
Very popular. Yes.
sometimes you have the right things for sale.
And then under replacement furniture and software, we're only at 1%, so I presume that it's probably a big purchase we're still waiting on.
Yes,
Is that the circ desk?
yes.
Okay. Give any sense of timing?
We're still trying to find somebody who can provide this.
So it's possible we'll be carrying this over again another year.
Carried it over a few times, yes.
Yeah, okay.
We have actually a local company who just sent us some information, so we're gonna look at that now and see if maybe it needs to be done in smaller pieces.
Mhm.
Instead of doing all of the library at once with the bigger company, saying we're gonna do, you know, this desk. And then you can go out and build and manufacture the corner desk and then build and manufacture the seating area and look at it in one piecemeal. We might do better that way. Most of our local people couldn't do the size, so they didn't apply. So we're thinking, from feedback from one of the local actual builders, they said, you know, we can't do that ourselves, so you're stuck with the big companies, and the big companies are just not moving product at this point.
Yeah.
They're doing whole libraries. So we're too small for. the
Somebody's
project.
building the library.
Right.
Damn it.
Yeah. they- So yes, we're trying to think of a different way of putting it forward.
Okay.
So I was actually wondering, in terms of the grants, so the federal and the revenue. So is there a challenge, so that's where that should read budget 202.
Yes, that was what.
Okay, so we were hoping for 35,000 federally, but we're not getting it, or it's.
They tend not to send their money until the end. We have.
Not concerned about it.
You're
I'm
supposed
just
to
looking at
say
the
something.
number, 23,000 is already confirmed. So that's what's coming from the current federal grants. And then we have some monies that were just deposited that were for the Q4 of the ministry, which is Q1 for us. So the people who work from January through March 31st, those monies are just going to be coming out, and usually August, September is by the time we get them.
So at this point, you're confident the grants that we budgeted.
We'll be close. I don't think from 23, we're gonna make the 35. We were off by one staff that is usually funded. And so that it might be a bit lower. We also didn't get summer students this year, which was really surprising.
Do we get a grant for them, or?
Oh, we applied,
Oh,
yes.
No students applied?
No, we didn't get the funding for,
She didn't get
we
funded.
usually get the Canada Summer Jobs.
Mhm.
And we didn't get our person to two person that we've gotten every other year.
That's disappointing.
Well, that should also mean that our staffing will be able to
Our
understand
staff,
by the
right.
same amount.
Because we know we don't pay them if we don't hire them if we don't have it.
I'm saying, so a big chunk still coming through from the municipal side.
Yes, so we look at that as basically the monthly that they're, yeah. So from the 2 months through the end of June, they put in about half, which is what would be expected at 50% mark.
Any sense of why they weren't providing funding? Because usually that's pretty rubber stamp.
I think it's just numbers of people who are applying,
Okay,
the amount of people in the
They
nonprofit
didn't
sector who
have-
are really looking, money isn't the same. We had a lot of money coming at us during the pandemic,
yeah,
and now they're kind of scaling back to more typical days.
okay.
And staffing, you're on budget, and that was the budget, the careful budgeting,
Right,
and we're tracking
yes.
pretty.
So we're at
close.
45%. We usually go over the 50% mark in the summer, just because we normally have so many students that come in. But we're a bit lower at that point, so we should be on target for staff.
Good job.
But when you go, we're gonna have to hire 4 more people. So that is an issue for next time.
For,
When you leave, we're gonna hire. 4 more people.
Yes, it's not just a one-to-one.
It's not a 1-to-1 ratio there,
I didn't get 4 times the wages.
and we thank you for that.
Okay, shall we move on? So the next item is the round table. And is there anything anyone wants to bring up or bring in anything you think we should be, you want to comment on?
We have a new exhibit that is coming. If you haven't gone in, it's Thursday and just spent time in that space. It is so fantastic.
Mhm.
The Indigenous artists, it's coming down. I'm very sad. Yes. We switch, I believe it's on Monday. They're gonna be hanging for BBO's collection of art that has been donated in. It's a real short event. We usually give it about 2 weeks. We used to give a month and we found, you know, you're coming in because you want to buy something, not because you want it. So up 2 weeks, we have a reception on August 26th that I will be the hostess with the mostest, pouring drinks for those who wish to come and buy BBO art. And then a quick turnaround, September 2nd, we have the reception for the next site. The library is actually going to be closing on September 2nd, just after 2 o'clock. So when the ACC members come in to run that, we're going to be closing because a staff member is getting married and all staff are going to the wedding.
Wow.
So, we're usually open until 5, so we're just going to close the gate and then let them have their reception.
Who's getting married? Oh,
Yes.
oh,
So, yes, Hannah was an intern here for a year, then a year and a half, then she was communication for about a year before she headed out to other things. Yes, and she's a fill-in.
if I.
Yes, she does a lot of our banquets. Yeah, she's one of our smart
For
serve.
Willie.
Yes, she's one of our smart serve people, so she comes in on a as need basis for those.
Ah, congratulations.
Yes, we have weddings and the whole staff is going.
How are you handling the smart serve side of this here?
Actually, the ACC members, when they picked the schedule, we warned them because we knew the date. And one of the ACC members went and got smart served.
Oh, okay.
So we now have a smart serve staff or a smart serve member there. It will not be a charge, so they don't have to worry about using point of sale systems and everything else.
Right, yeah.
So it'll just be a complimentary.
Okay, excellent. Anything else under roundtable?
Well, I'd just like to say that, I've had a couple volunteers come in to clean up your gardens. We looked at the courtyard, some things didn't make it through in the winter time. And so we've added more plants in and hopefully we'll see next spring some indication of that.
Is there anything that we should get the town to do in the fall? I know
Well,
some
we
plants do
really
better
have-
when they're wrapped or they're protected more.
No, and you should be cutting them down. Actually, town staff did cut down the ones around the town, which they shouldn't have done. But, no, there should be self-sufficient. I mean, it would be nice to have water hookup in there, but, that's a
There's,
different.
yeah, none of the water hookup works. in this
No.
building.
And the front, we did go in and clean the canoe, but then I noticed that the whole front garden there was overcome with weeds, so we cleaned that up as well. And I'm gonna ask Terry if he can bring some more mulch and put it down around there, to try and help protect it. But I just thought to acknowledge the 2 people that came in,
Thank you.
3 people that came in and volunteered.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah.
And let us know if anyone's doing that, because we like to keep track of who the volunteers are and hours. We have to report that.
Well, I noticed your volunteer list and I wondered whether they should be added to.
Mhm. Yeah, we'll add them into the hours that were given over the month.
Well, I can give you the names of the three and their hours too.
Wonderful, we'll get that after the meeting.
I'll email you.
Thank you.
I think we're on to key messages.
Can we say something about, you know, board heard? Just something about the data analysis or the work in progress.
Yeah, I'd like to add under community hubs. I started to draft something, did I actually? So can you put access to sort of put in a line to remind us to add something? Maybe not. Well, yeah, good reports following the joint meeting with council, the board has been meeting to complete usage reports and information pertaining to the needs assessment. The board is requesting a second joint meeting in order to bring the needed items, I guess, back to council pertaining to library expansion needs.
Maybe you could just say bring information back to the council pertaining to library.
Okay, we're going to change that, sorry. Yes,
Bring required, needed it, bring required information or required data or.
Full data to council on usage is the language from the motion. I'm wondering if we want to add something, maybe a separate bullet, is that we're seeking, we're seeking clarity on how to fulfill council's directive that the director of community services ensure full, again, the council wording, full consultation with the board on the development of the multi-use feasibility study. Yeah, full consultation in the development of the multi-use feasibility study. And then my last one was, I'm not sure I had this right, but determining the purpose of the Craiglee Community Working Group and the development of services in Craiglee. I don't think that's really how we want to say it. I just wanted to capture that. He's determining the role of the Craiglee Working Group in the development of services in Craiglee and how the library board can participate,
Play a role.
play a role.
Participate.
And we were talking there about the mountain ratepayers. Who's the deputy chief?
Well, we don't know, that's part of it.
Yeah, so I'm just, because I want to make sure, again, back to this confusion. Is Craiglee Community Working Group what CAO Everett called it? Or what was on the record?
That's what's on the record.
Okay.
Community working group. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we go back to the first one when you're done that?
Well, it was beginning,
They didn't actually say anything, so I would just.
but it was the second one says that we're supposed to do something with CC,
Well, they only suggested,
sending something for information.
yes, which they did. The council did, or staff did, then
Okay.
with us, so we're just trying to figure out, no, you've done
So
something.
have we resent information to?
Council was supposed to send it to them.
Oh, okay. So, all right, so you sent it to.
And I'm wondering if all three of those bullets are actually maybe response to council motions. And then we have reports to council.
It's just,
And then there's 3 bullets under that, or 3 sub bullets, I guess.
but somewhere in there in the first part, we lost the fact that we're looking at, looking for new facility. Like expansion, like the word expansion was in there and it's now on, so I think it's good. Like, it just sounds like, this is what we're putting some data together. Board has been meeting to review.
It's really, have the usage reports. And information pertaining to needs assessment. For the expansion.
To already say, we've been preparing a needs assessment, which includes. Usage. Projections. Regarding. A future expansion or something,
We shouldn't be calling it the president. Oh,
No.
sorry, you're right, but that is the one.
But yeah, I think maybe you need to combine the two, so it has been
Yeah.
meaning to complete usage reports and information
you don't complete usage reports, so
to.
we analyze and compile.
Well, we were asked to provide full data to council on usage, so that's the kind of language.
Councils are meeting to prepare.
Compare the requested data, or
Yeah.
usage data and use assessment, but I think it's really the point, Julia, you're making is, it's about the expansion. We need to make sure the reason that we're doing this
Yeah,
is
not that they
to
told us.
clarify the requirement for expansion.
Okay, so we can say the board is meeting to prepare the requested needs assessment pertaining to a future expansion. Get rid of council, because it's, you said it twice. So get rid of council. Yeah, so that's that, and then. I don't think we really need the fact that all the pieces we've done in the needs assessment.
I agree.
I just believe the board will be required at the joint meeting. That's the second.
Yeah, require full data.
So delete that part.
Yeah. And a second joint meeting, to present. Yeah, Folsom analysis.
Yeah.
With the Folsom analysis.
You want analysis instead?
You said needs assessment already. You say Folsom analysis period. Like that?
Yeah, so just language pertaining to you can get rid of the a future expansion. We're saying there's going to be a future expansion.
Oops, lost a couple other items that had been
I think all points aren't all 3 points part of the community house response to?
well, there was the one about the Playwood Community Working Group and the one about multi-use facility. We already drafted those, and they seem to be gone.
Oh dear. Where it goes?
It's trying to. We're not in, we're in Sheraton. Oh. Let's see. No, that's it, so it must have just read that when it was next. All right, we'll have that, we'll have to rewrite the CCC one.
Okay, let's look at another one here. Determining the role of the Craigly Community Working Group. And the development of services and that's what I've written down. So you edited. Oh, the difference between the BMRA versus the town working group. If there is a difference. Then there was the one on seeking clarity on how to fulfill council's direction about full consultation on the multi-use feasibility study. Multi-use feasibility study.
And I will go back to our recording and pull up
The actual wording.
what we had from the first one.
Okay. So then ready?
Mhm.
So we wrote that one about Craigslist station name change. Okay. And we were going to talk about. Request. Yeah, okay, you had something about including letters, okay. Usually, those were all things I captured as we were talking. Maybe
We had two others that we talked about adding during the day. Accreditation and the Craigly Station was a request, which we have. So something about accreditation.
So that would be in empowering services.
We are proud to announce that we achieved 100% of our criteria, except for 2 cars.
Oh, leave those things out, just 100%,
100%.
with room to grow.
Okay. Can I have a mover and seconder, that the board approve the release of the key messages? Julia, seconder, Joanne. Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. So you have the upcoming meeting dates here. We do yet need to confirm September 13th.
I just changed my other meeting, so I'm good to keep it at 1 o'clock.
Okay, does that work for everybody?
So our next meeting is September 15th.
Yeah, but we need to get together and then you and I need to get together on the data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll send information out on 13th so that the board is prepared. The committee will be also sending some information out to the board just before. With some recommendations on how that hour should go. And that'll be part of what they plan between now and then.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that's it. We don't have a closed session. So I'm going to move it. We now adjourn and we'll just call it 4 o'clock.